live? Hello gamers from around the world, this is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to this week's episode of The World of Gaming, your number one podcast, where we discuss everything that happens in the world of gaming, and usually Dutch. Right before Christmas, there isn't much going on in the industry, but actually this week we have plenty of topics to cover, so I can't wait for that. But first of all, let me welcome our awesome community. The chat is already filling up with a lot of familiar names. A big welcome to you guys. And of course, a big welcome to our listeners who listen after the fact, either here on YouTube, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Welcome. And Dutch, my man, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better than I did last week. I've still got a little bit of a chest, but not anywhere near as bad as I was then. So
that's
I'm glad that's
good to hear.
Done.
That is
Just
good
in
to
time.
hear. Sweet.
Just in time.
Ready
And
for the holidays?
Tomorrow. Yeah, I finish work tomorrow.
Sweet.
And then I'm off for 2 weeks, so cannot wait.
Awesome.
I'm going to eventually catch up on some gaming because, again, yet another week where I haven't actually turned on the Xbox and played any games, or turned on the PlayStation or PC or anything. So
the busy pre-holiday season. I'm all too familiar with that. All too familiar. All right. Guys, before we start properly with the show, I want to say two things. First of all, I want to apologize to our listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the podcast services. We haven't been really consistent with the uploads there because the way how we record our audio is actually done through YouTube, and for some reason that doesn't work properly for 4 weeks now or so. I thought it was just a phase, but it seems to be something that is going on with YouTube, and they do not allow us to record properly the audio anymore through YouTube. So we changed that starting this show. Different software, different way on how we record the audio for Spotify and Apple Podcasts and so on. And that means one thing, and Dutch, you said it pre-show, people will rage in the chat, but that's why we won't do the jingles anymore, because this is the only caveat that we have to take.
And obviously the jingles won't be heard only by the audio listeners. For the use on YouTube, you will still hear the jingles.
No, they won't. We won't have no more jingles at all. It's. I'm trying to figure something out how we can do that. But
you can put the jingle overlay things on
StreamYard. That's what I've been thinking, but then it doesn't look properly on the overlays on OBS. It's
we're gonna have just an image we can just put there when we do the jingle on each of our screens.
I don't know. Yeah, it is super weird. So I will try to figure out something, but for now, because we have a growing audience on the podcast services, not just here on YouTube, we want to make the world of gaming a show that everyone can enjoy. And if that means we have to wait till the jingles return, and I have figured out a way how to do them on both, on the streaming services and on YouTube. Until then, we will have to postpone jingles. But I don't want to bore everyone out here about the issues that we are having in trying to.
It's an important issue. Jingles are an important issue.
The jingles, I don't want to downplay it. Yeah, you're right. They are an important issue. They are. And I will spend my entire Christmas days trying to figure it out. Actually, I won't. I'm sorry, but we will definitely try to look into that. So, with that out of the way, one more thing, Dutch, last week, and we probably going to mention it throughout the show a couple of times because people rotate in and out. Last week, we already mentioned that we intend to do the very first, what we would like to call interactive podcast. Yeah. We're going to do a special podcast right after Christmas, most likely on the 26th of December. We want to do a new format, something I at least have not seen do anyone else. I'm not saying that somebody tried to do something similar before. I'm not familiar with all podcasts in this world, but from the podcasts I am familiar with, I've never seen anyone do something like that. We want to do an interactive podcast to figure out with our awesome community what is actually Game of the Year. So during that podcast, you guys will be interacting a lot with us in different ways. And we do kind of like a tournament style thing to try to figure out what is actually Game of the Year. After the Game Awards, we talked about that last week. We all felt awesome about the announcements and the new trailers and stuff, but the actual awards, not so much. And we want to rectify that and do the World of Gaming Game of the Year podcast, and we have a new format for that. I hope it will work. And yeah, just be surprised. We hope that you guys tune in on December 26th, same time as right now, meaning 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Europe, or 7 p.m. UK time. And yeah, this is going to be one interesting show. But with the self-advertisement out of the way, Dutch, I need to shout out the first supers that already came in. The first of the day comes in from Julia for being a channel member for 11 months. Thank you so much for the continued support. And the super member chat simply says hello, and a big hello to you. And of course, again, a big hello to everyone who is already listening and tuning in. And we have the Sith Lord with a channel member chat for being a channel member for 28 months. That's almost 2.5 years, man. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And he says, Merry Christmas, guys. Hope you have a good Xmas and New Year. Thank you, and Merry Christmas, of course, to everyone in this community. For those who celebrate the holidays, we hope you guys are going to have an awesome Christmas, because it is our last podcast, Dutch, right before Christmas. But we'll be back shortly after Christmas, December 26th, with our special show. So I don't want to wish everyone a happy new year just yet, because we hope
we'll wish it on the 26th.
We do that on the 26th. Exactly. All right. Good. As always, guys, don't forget to vote in the chat. What gameplay do you want to watch first? I had to cancel the first poll, but I put up a second poll, and most people already have voted. I'm just going to leave that up for another couple of minutes before switching to gameplay. Astrobot is currently leading here. Interesting, man. Interesting. So, Dutch, you haven't played really much over the last weeks.
I wish.
Over the last week.
I really want to. I've got so many things that I need to play through, but I just haven't had the time. My first priority after being sick was getting back into the gym. So I've had a couple of nights at the gym this week, and I've been kind of recovering. And I've also been doing a spray project, which needs done by the weekend, which is a Christmas gift for someone. So that needs completed. So as soon when that's done on the weekend, then I can get back.
You can fully get back to gaming. So
Yeah.
what you going to jump into first?
I need to finish Indie. That's the most recent one I've done, so I'm going to finish Indie.
You definitely need to.
Yeah. And then I'm debating whether or not to just tackle backlog or get another game.
Interesting.
It's up between Warhammer.
Yeah, that's my thing. I bought that actually the other day. I haven't started yet, but it's on sale right now. And in the last sale, the Black Friday sales, there was only like the super duper ultimate special gold edition on discount. This time it's just the base game, and I got that, and that's probably going to be my Christmas game. I haven't started yet, just bought it yesterday, I think. But yeah, that's gonna be my Christmas game. Guys, let us know in the chat, what are you currently playing? And of course, let us know, what do you intend to play over the holidays? And Dutch, briefly, I also need to shout out our awesome community. A lot of people just having great conversations here in the chat. Everyone's wishing everyone Merry Christmas, great holidays. I love that community so much. It's actually why we do the podcast, right? It's not just to hear our voices for 2-3 hours, but it's because of this awesome community. So big shout out to you guys, and I do hope everyone's gonna have an awesome holiday with their families, their loved ones, their friends, whoever you are going to celebrate with. And shout out to Paul AFC for being a channel member for 42 months. And I think he has the crown for being the longest channel member to date. Shout out to you, man. And he says, Merry Christmas, Boxy Dutch. And the chat, let's fucking go. We will. So, Dutch, what have I been playing? Path of Exile 2 was the one I put in the most hours over the last week. I think I played like 40 hours over the last week. A little bit more, maybe. I love that game so much. So good. I'm usually not a fan of early access. And that's because I had very bad experiences over the last couple of early access games I've tried. For different reasons, usually early access games don't have enough content, or are bug-riddled, or just don't feel right, and you just feel like you're being a paid beta tester. And this game is different. It runs really well. Of course, there are occasional issues. I mean, it's early access, but it's more polished than many of the actual full releases of games I've played this year. Honestly, it runs actually really good playing on Xbox. Haven't played on PC yet, because they don't support cross progression just yet. So that's why I'm sticking with Xbox right now. Runs really well, and it is so addictive, man. If you think the best days of Diablo, like, when you have this repeated loop, you don't do like super grindy stuff in the game, but you just have this addictive loop. Okay, one more, and you really encourage to explore all the maps properly, and it is just so well done. It's super fun. The boss fights are incredible. Much better than in Diablo. Don't get me wrong, I do love Diablo 4 and all the others before. Not hating on Diablo, but this one has proper choreography for boss fights in it, and they are just so well done. Like, every boss plays completely different. Like just yesterday, I had this one boss where he was like a smith, and I was fighting him in his forge, and he was running down a lava stream towards you, and you had to like properly move away from the lava stream while battling him, and things like that. It's just so good. I think I'm nearing the end of Act 3, and I wonder what comes after, because apparently in early access only 3 acts are included. But by the time I have finished Act 3, I would assume I have at least put in already 60 hours, so there's no complaint here. And apparently the focus of early access is on endgame stuff, so they have basically the entire endgame in it and not the full campaign. Still, again, playing campaign in Act 3 and already 60 hours or plus minus by then So this is just one hell of a game. And I need to shout out John TJ, who tried to hit me up 2 or 3 times to play with him, Path of Exile. I know he's playing too. But he always caught me in like the worst situations when I was like, okay, I gotta leave in like 10 minutes anyway. So we weren't able to do a party. But I definitely want to play with him, because I haven't played co-op yet. I only have played it solo so far, and it's a blast, man. It's a blast. The other game that what got me again is The Witcher itch, Dutch. And I downloaded it.
You started.
Yeah.
Yay! You might complete it before the end of the new year.
I don't know. Over the holidays, I don't get that much gaming time, because we're traveling and visiting family and such. So that's why I installed it on the Rock Alley. By the way, Dutch. Yeah. And little side story here. Sorry if that bores you guys, but I need to get this off my chest. I love my Rock Alley, but it's a pain in the ass because it's a Windows device. And whenever I turn it on, I have to update and something is always needs to be updated. It's either Windows, or it's a driver, or it's the AMD suite, or this time BIOS. I had a BIOS update, and then the games themselves, and the pain. So, and I installed The Witcher, and it kept crashing like every 30 seconds. So I Googled, and apparently on some devices, it's not bound to the Rock Ally. It can also apparently happen on every other PC. There is a DirectX 12 issue. A couple of games apparently have that. And what you need to do to fix it is you have to turn on one of the upscalers, either Intel's XeSS or FSR2 or something, to fix that. But by default, when you install the game, it has not turned any of those on. And if you don't turn any of those on, it keeps crashing for whatever reason. So apparently a couple of games have that. I did not know that. It just reminded me why I prefer playing on consoles and not on PC. But anyway, so I started to play The Witcher 3 again. It's gonna be my I think 6th playthrough. Anyway, what has the community been playing? Let's see here. Where do we start? First of all, I need to shout out the Sith Lord, who sends in a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. He says, Xbox Developer Direct, second half of January. Yeah, absolutely. We are going to talk about that in a second. So, Big Mad Mo has been playing The First Descendant, and he has also played a little bit of Call of Duty, and he's almost done with Metaphor. Sweet. The Big Bridge has been playing Odin Sphere, and I don't know how to pronounce the last word. Leftrasier? Something like that. I never heard of that. Man. H. Julia has been playing Indiana Jones. Perfect. Awesome. I love that game. Probably going to be my game of the year. Paul AFC, Indiana Jones. He had the flu. Sorry to hear that. Hope you get better soon. So, and I need to ban Luke Steele. He says Witcher 3 is mid. You know, I'm happy to allow. I am happy to allow all opinions here, as long as they don't insult anyone. But, dude, this is just wrong.
Can't allow that.
We can't allow that. Yeah. Good Hunter has just finished another run in Sekiro, and he's now moving into Indiana Jones, which is awesome. So I hope I didn't miss anyone. Anyway, Dutch, let's get into the show and let's talk about some actual news that came out this week. Well, just today, you know, there has been... Luke Steele, by the way, says, don't worry, Boxy, he's only joking. I'm glad.
Even he wouldn't joke about that, come on.
Dutch, over the last weeks, we have heard multiple rumors that Sony intends to acquire Kadokawa, right? The mother company from Software, so makers of Dark Souls and Elden Ring and so on. And this was actually, we discussed this as well during this podcast, of course. But today, we got confirmation that they're not acquiring them per se, but that they have acquired 10% of the shareholder, being the biggest single shareholder now at Kadokawa. Tencent owns only 6-point-something%, and Sony now owning 10% of them. So, what do you make of this? The internet is going crazy about it, and I don't really get why. So, what are your thoughts, man?
It is what it is. It's just it's a strategic thing. I think they're just trying to stave off hostile takeover from a Korean company. In terms of the investment and strategic alliance, Xbox have got a very similar thing with Sega. A strategic alliance usually means sharing ideas, sharing ideology, sharing best practice, sharing resources and tools in order to kind of get the best out of their IPs on both sides. That doesn't mean making exclusive content or anything like that specifically. That just means both of them are kind of aiming to do the same thing.
Yeah, I do agree.
It's not like it's not nothing big, nothing small. It's kind of just it's much like the Sega Alliance thing for us. It literally makes no difference. Like it doesn't affect the normal person.
It will absolutely not. I think this is completely blown out of proportion, honestly. Like being a shareholder of around about 10%, yeah, you get a saying on the table. But it's not like you can make any strategic decisions. You're not involved in major business plans. Yeah, you have a seat on the table. But overall, this is just like a intensified strategic partnership. I mean, and I totally assume that this is mostly not about gaming. This is absolutely about the anime stuff, where we will probably have a lot of strategic partnerships. Everyone's going crazy about From Software, of course. That's the big one, owned by them, where gamers actually care, and a lot of people are afraid that they might do like more exclusive deals with PlayStation now. I mean, they've done that once with, no, actually twice, Demon's Souls and Bloodborne. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're scared that something like that comes out of this, or?
No, not particularly. And me and you aren't the best people to be concerned about this because we're not huge Souls fans.
Yeah.
But like, I was debating the silliness of this debate with a market analyst. He's not a market analyst. He's just a self-proclaimed one on Twitter earlier. And one of the thing go-tos he kind of went to straight away is, are you just concerned about FromSoft making exclusive content from Sony? No, and I'd be the complete wrong person to accuse of that because I hate Souls games. I am shit at Souls games. I'd rather stay away from Souls games if I can at any way help it. Elden Ring is the only one that I somewhat got along with. All other ones, I'd rather not play them if I can help it. And if a game is a Souls-like game, chances are I'm never playing it.
Yeah,
I don't care how good it is. I just don't like them. So, no, it doesn't concern me. Will it concern Souls-like fans or FromSoft fans? Possibly, but I don't foresee FromSoft making every game exclusive. Yes, they'll continue to work with Sony as they have done in the past to make some exclusive games for Sony.
Yeah.
But they will absolutely make Dark Souls for everything, Elden Ring for everything, all the big games that really matter. The big titles will remain multiplat and always will. Let's face it, it's a strategic alliance partnership, and it's only 10%.
Yeah,
I
do agree. I do agree.
Control.
There is no need to be like super concerned. By the way, Good Hunter in the chat corrected us. They had 3 times a deal with Demon's Souls, Bloodborne, and Derazine.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
what was that one?
I don't know if I pronounced it properly. I remember that was during, I want to say, the PlayStation 2 era. Derazine or something like that. I'm not sure how to pronounce it properly.
I'm trying to find the
Derazine.
Demon's Souls Blue. I've never heard of Derazine, to be fair.
I've never played it. I remember there was something before that.
The VR game.
That's that. Yeah, right. Yeah, I've never played that. So, yeah, okay, 3 times. Anyway, maybe they will do something like, I don't know, a Bloodborne 2 eventually, or I don't know, something similar. But given that a lot of the third-party publishers now tend to do less of these console exclusive deals. We've heard that from Square and Sega and Capcom, and I don't think that we will see plenty of like gaming related exclusive things. I do think this is mainly a strategic partnership towards the anime things, and they will get certain rights and certain sayings there, but with 10% you can't influence the entire company and get your share with anime and with gaming and with this and that. It's not gonna happen, so stay calm. I don't think this is a big deal whatsoever. Anything you want to add before we move on to something else?
No, I think it's... Listen, there's a lot of these. We've said this about the even the most recent acquisition for Activision. The only thing that come out with that for people is Call of Duty games and Activision titles going on to Game Pass. That was it. Outside of that, does it monumentally affect like Xbox as a whole? No, because all of the games will go everywhere.
Yeah.
And in terms of a lot of these acquisitions these days, anyway, these companies want to make as much money as physically possible, and they don't want to limit themselves to certain platforms anymore. So a lot of the buyouts that I think you'll see going forwards, or investments or anything like that, a lot of the stipulations from these third parties will be, we want to expand our player base and get as many people as possible, so we need investment to do that. Not limited to a singular platform, which you've seen the likes of Sega and Square Enix, and quite a lot of third parties kind of stipulate that now. Like, now is not the time to be singling down on singular platforms anymore. It needs to be as wide as possible to make money. And I think we will always stand by this. Platform holders themselves, however, still need a USP. They still need exclusives themselves in order to differentiate themselves, because unlike other things, the vast majority of products in the world need their own USP in order to sell them.
Yeah.
Like, why do you buy this particular trainer over this particular trainer? Or this one's really comfortable because of this kind of cushioning technology or something like that. Or I buy this particular, like I go for Netflix over Amazon because Netflix has better kind of production value for the content that they produce over Amazon, who really doesn't give you enough for their money. And you've got it full of ads and things these days, and X, Y, and Z. So each one of them have their own USPs. They've all got their own exclusive content that's only available there. And I've seen that the Netflix of gaming things quite a lot. But even if you have a look at Netflix, yes, it's on every device, but you need the subscription in order to watch it. You can't watch Netflix content on Amazon. You can't watch Netflix content on Disney. And vice versa. You can't watch any of the Disney content on Amazon or Netflix. You can't watch any of the Amazon content on Netflix or Disney. So exclusives matter in everything, and that's the same for Spotify versus Apple Music versus Amazon Music. Like, every one of them have got reasons to stand out over the other, exclusive reasons to stand out over one or the other, and platforms need to be the same. Desktop PCs are exactly the same as well.
Man, I didn't expect to get into that discussion this early in the podcast, because we have a couple of things we need to discuss around this when we talk about Satya Nadella's latest interview a little later in the show, though. Give everyone the chance to tune in, you know?
Yeah. But ultimately, yes, it's these deals, as they go on, third parties will absolutely want to remain multi-platform.
Yeah, I agree.
Shareholders are complaining consistently from third parties that they're just not making the profits and the returns on their investment, because they're making exclusive content that's not hitting their sales targets. The only way to get around that is to bring that everywhere. Now, people are always making fun of Square Enix. Oh, well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth didn't make big sales on PC. Well, that's because it didn't launch day and date. You're asking somebody to be hyped for a game that was out a year ago on a platform that it never was on. So that's not a real fair comparison. If you launch everything immediately on the chosen platforms of the person that wants to play it on, he hasn't just went out and played it on the first platform that came out on a year earlier. He would have chosen to play it on PC, and therefore he would have played it on PC at first, or he would have played it on his preferred platform. So you'll only really understand what these sales numbers will be when these companies start releasing things day and date on all platforms at the same time. So
true.
I think all acquisitions going forwards, this is kind of the summary, but all acquisitions going forwards will be the same. I think a lot of third parties now, they want, and to be fair to the platform holders, that benefits them more than anybody, because it makes them more money. It ultimately makes them more money. Yes, you can choose to nitpick and say, right, okay, we'll get you doing 2 projects, one for us and one for everybody, one for us and one for everybody, if you really want to put that into it. But ultimately, for them, from a pure financial aspect, putting all games everywhere when you're buying a third-party studio makes ultimate sense for you, because that's the only way you're going to make the most money out of the transaction.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to agree. However, I will give my spiel a little later because we definitely need to talk about this again when we talk about Satya.
Yes.
Let us talk a little bit about the aftermath of the Game Awards. The Game Awards, by the way, they broke record again. They announced that more than 154 million live streams were happening this year. New record-breaking viewer numbers. And there have been different discussions, not around the actual awards, but around the announced games. There has been, the discussion about intergalactic and whether that's woke now or not, and all those weird things and weird discussions. The one thing I found really interesting was that CD Projekt Red was on tour this week, giving loads of interviews surrounding The Witcher 4, which you might have guessed, Dutch. And probably some of our listeners that know my taste in gaming is probably my most anticipated game, period. So hyped for The Witcher 4. I know it's years out. I know that. Not gonna come anytime soon, but I'm just a sucker for the Witcher franchise and read the books, watched, of course, the actually, I think, really good TV show on Netflix and multiple times, and played 5 entire playthroughs of The Witcher 3. Played, of course, the original one and Witcher 2, and I'm just super excited for the next Witcher. And there were plenty of very interesting things revealed throughout the last couple of days. In different interviews, there was one big with Video Games Chronicles. There was actually one on the official Xbox blog. There was one on WCCF Tech and a couple of others. They have been on tour and talking about that game. And one thing that the community, or at least part of the community, seems to be concerned about is that Ciri is going to be the next main protagonist. And we've made it a point last week that we are not really going into this whole does she look good or not, is she hot enough kind of weird discussion. Ciri looks just fine, like an evolved character from the original trilogy, and that's totally fine. And then there is, of course, the controversy around why is she the main protagonist. And it's funny enough that last week, I remember us talking about that if you ask this kind of question, you clearly admit openly you haven't really played Witcher 3. Right?
Or even read the books, for that matter.
Or the books. Although I must admit that the story and the lore, they deviate from the books.
They deviate, but ultimately Ciri is still the main protagonist.
Absolutely.
Even if the story...
No doubt. Yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about that. But people have been complaining, I don't want to play The Witcher as a woman. Others have been, this is not a good character. I want to create my own Witcher. I want to play as Geralt again. The complaint. And the narrative director actually addressed that. Here's what he had to say. I think we definitely knew it would be controversial for some people because, of course, in the previous 3 Witcher games, Geralt was the protagonist, and I think everyone really loved playing as Geralt. I really love playing as Geralt. So I think we are aware that if some people think right now that they would still prefer to be Geralt, I do think that's a legitimate concern. So if this is where that concern is coming from, that's valid. Ciri was already being set up as the second protagonist in Andrei Sapkowski's novels, and as the second playable character in The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. So for us, it really was the natural evolution of what we've already been making for so long. Also for people who really love Geralt, it lets us honor the ending that Geralt had in The Witcher 3 and Blood and Wine. He went on a little bit. I'm now summarizing, not going to read the entire interview because there are lengthy interviews out there. You guys can find them for yourselves. I highly recommend the one on the official Xbox blog. Actually, that was a really good one. He goes on and also explains that since they are setting up The Witcher 4 as a new trilogy, having Ciri as a main protagonist allows them to dive deeper into basically her origin story as a Witcher, because Geralt already in the first one, I don't know who actually played the first Witcher. Let us know in the chat. I did, but even in the first one, Geralt already was like a super experienced Witcher, which Ciri obviously is not. Yeah. And they are setting this up as a trilogy from the get-go, and obviously she is a Witcher in the games. That's how he said it, but she's not as experienced as Geralt was, and it allows them to do different things with the story, obviously. I'm not saying it's going to be an origin story, but you know what I mean. It is the early days for her.
It's also from a new school. If you have a look at the
links, she is the links, a new school introduced, which is super interesting because Witcher schools have stopped creating new Witchers, right? And Ciri is now a new Witcher, obviously, in a new school. So what's happening there? Yeah, right? Is the Trials of Crassus back? Do they do them now not just for boys, but obviously also for girls? What's happening there? Did they find a safer way to do the Trial of Crass? I don't know. If you read the books...
from what we do know in terms
Ciri's
of
blood plays a big role. Yeah.
What we do know about with regard to Ciri's power anyway is realistically and theoretically she'd have a greater chance of surviving Trials of the Grasses anyway.
She will also, by the way, they confirmed that, have new signs to use. Her powers stick apparently deep into the elements, she can control fire, water, etc., earth. So she's diving more in
Earth, wind, and fire.
Earth, wind, and fire, basically.
Is that going to be a background music as well?
Yeah. So, man, I'm absolutely excited for that. What do you think about Ciri being the new Witcher? Obviously, they have my full approval. I like that. Geralt, by the way, was confirmed to be in the games to a certain degree. Let's see. I could, my first guess is he's gonna play like a mentor role, like similar to Vesemir or something like that. However, what do you think, man? The whole Ciri discussion blown out of proportion. What are your thoughts, man?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Again, we've had this discussion many times. It kind of just shows that a lot of the people, the vast majority of the people, because there are some with certain concerns around differences in the books versus like, how's she a witch? Yeah, she hasn't done the Trails of the Grasses, blah 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 blah. And that's fine. Those are healthy debates to have when it's comparing lore versus what they're changing for the purpose of the game.
Although if somebody has watched the spin-off Blood Origin available on Netflix,
the animated
I haven't. Apparently, there is also a book, Blood Origins. I haven't read that. Mm-hmm. I haven't read that, but I did watch Blood Origins on Netflix, which kind of goes back to the old days. I haven't seen
the animated one.
No, it's not animated. It's like 4 episodes.
Oh,
fully,
yes, I didn't see that either.
You have to watch that. It's actually really good. They go back to the 2,000 years when the what's that in English? The alignment of the planets happened, and the entire planet was humans were introduced into the world, and they with that monsters, and they created the very first original Witcher. And if you watch that, they wanted the first Witcher to be a woman, actually. And because minor spoilers here, because the guy who became the first Witcher ever was so deeply in love with that girl that was supposed to take the trial of Crass. He underwent the trial of Crass himself. So originally, I don't think that this really excludes women from becoming a Witcher. It's just never been done. Yeah. It's just never been done. But anyway, exactly. I was interrupting you on your thoughts on Ciri being the main protagonist.
On that particular front anyway, regarding lore, etc., that's a healthy debate to have from people who have read the books, watched all of the media around it, played the games. That's a healthy debate to have. However, there's then the flip side of those who clearly haven't done any of the aforementioned and are just saying, oh, woman playing as the lead, Ciri playing as the lead, Ciri ugly, silly, oh, Ciri ugly. I don't want Ciri to play for ugly Ciri.
What is that impression, man?
It's basically caveman. It's caveman with no real desire to have an actual healthy discussion. Because those people don't understand or have no care for the lore of The Witcher and just make asinine comments about where things have been and where they're going. And just, oh, well, why is Ciri the lead? If you'd played any of it and read any of the lore, you would know, realistically, Ciri would always be the lead. Whether it be in the lore that was set out in the books or whether it be the lore that was introduced at pretty much the second half of the game on Witcher 3, you knew it was always going down the path of Ciri being the lead. It is maddening at times, and it does get really, really boring having to deal with these people on Twitter all the time. That's also overlapped into Intergalactic recently as well, which has been just as bad. But yeah, do you know what it is? I can't wait, because Ciri was an absolute beast in the times that you got to play with her on Witcher 3. She was just insane to play as. And I think introducing her full power range as the new trilogy of Witcher games as Ciri progresses is going to be really fascinating to see. But I can't wait for it. And in terms of Geralt and what he plays, I think he's going to remain kind of in the background, but also, like you say, a mentor, someone that she'll go to and you'll see in kind of varied cutscenes and certain things where he's even kind of discussing things like Witcher senses for the first time and how to track and
giving
like
her
that.
moral support and advice and things like that. Yeah, I agree. Exactly, That's probably his role.
It's going to be a case of, and the thing is about The Witcher specifically is a lot of people have went into The Witcher with The Witcher 3. A lot of people haven't went back and played The Witcher 1 or The Witcher 2 to kind of get a real understanding of the series from the start to the front, to play as Geralt in his trilogy. So it'll be good for a brand new Witcher trilogy to start here and really introduce the character and go from there as Ciri. And again, it'll get a whole new range of new Witcher fans on board that might go back and I want to see what Witcher 1 and 2 is all about.
By the way, also something they addressed this week in the interviews, the narrative director said something along these lines. I'm paraphrasing now. I don't have the exact quote right here. That, of course, by the time the next Witcher game comes out, more than a decade has passed. So many of their players are adults now that have been kids when the Witcher 3 comes out. So they want to, of course, make a good entry point for new players into the franchise and IP. And at the same time, they know that they are doing a sequel. That's why they called it. By the way, he also mentioned that it's a direct sequel. That's why it's The Witcher 4 and not something else. And they need to find an entry point for new players and take care of the existing lore. And I think I have no doubt that they will nail it. By the way, they also touched.
What I was going to add as well before you jump into it.
You sure?
I have absolute faith in CD Projekt Red from a storytelling perspective because they have yet to let me down. From a technical perspective, they had a very, very bumpy road. Both actually with The Witcher 3 wasn't the softest of launches.
But I don't think it was like
Cyberpunk was
Cyberpunk.
Rough.
Yeah.
So aside from technically, yes, people can have their gripes, but ultimately, they not only did they put it right, but they've crafted one of the most beautiful and technically impressive games ever in Cyberpunk across the board. And Luke Steele will be kind of testament to this because he's got a powerhouse PC that'll have ran Cyberpunk in all of its glory with full path tracing and all that. That game is just magnificent now, but the stories that they craft and the worlds that they build are second to none.
I agree.
Absolutely brilliant. And the side quests are meaningful, like legitimately meaningful in all of the games, which is even better. Like you're actually interested in everything that's going on, and they somehow feel like they link to the main story. Even if you at first you don't understand that they do, and then you get through it and you're like, oh, actually, I can understand why that is part of this world and why it links to my actual main kind of goals here. And it's just fascinating. So I absolutely cannot wait to play The Witcher 4. And likewise, we know that they're also kind of working on the next Cyberpunk in the background. So I'm like,
but that's like a long time away.
It is a long time, but
I mean, they have now multiple studios. They founded new studios across the world. There's also the Witcher 1 remake coming.
Yes.
And there's another Witcher game.
Are they doing that in Unreal as well?
Yes.
Oh.
Apparently, yeah. With modernized controls and quest design, and so it's like a full-fledged proper remake. And that game actually needs it. The Witcher 1 is kind of rough to go back. I've tried that earlier this year, and the first Witcher is rough around the edges. You can just tell that this game is, from its gameplay mechanics, it didn't age that well. The second one is actually a lot better. It's also a little rough around the edges in terms of gameplay mechanics. It's also like, I want to say now 15 years old or so. You can tell. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the full-fledged remake. And there's another Witcher game in the making that they partnered with a studio. I'm blanking on the name right now. Which is gonna be like a multiplayer experience. So multiplayer Witcher. But I think that's a game that's really far out. However, I've heard this discussion on another podcast whether the Witcher 1 remake might come before Witcher 4, and I mean, we know about the remake. They confirmed that they do the remake like 2 years ago. Now, is that enough? Because we all assume like Witcher 4 is earliest 27, right? It's not a 26 game, let alone a 25 game. So 27 or beyond for The Witcher 4, that brings the question up, is the Witcher 1 remake maybe coming beforehand. And I think that kind of would make sense, get people hyped again before the big one, the Witcher 4 comes out. Maybe release that a year before that or so. Could see that happening, right? That's a possibility. But that's coming back to Witcher 4. A lot of other things have been confirmed. So Gwent is going to come back, which is cool. I think Gwent is probably the best in-game.
I try to stay away from the card games and things, and that's not just on Witcher, by the way. That's also Final Fantasy.
It's a really good one, man.
I know it probably will be, but I try to stay away from them because even if you're even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I actually enjoyed the card game on that as well. But then going into Final Fantasy 9 and 8 and 10,
okay,
and the card games that they had there, and yeah, I've just tried to stay away from them.
But they were never really good in the Final Fantasy games or so.
Yeah, I mean, they're all really good. The problem is you just end up getting sidetracked by them forever, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I get that. But they were really not that good in games like Final Fantasy. But this one, Gwent, I'm looking forward to see how they bring it back. Whether they will change the mechanics of Gwent a little, I don't know. Yeah. We shall see. So, and then the CD Projekt Red talked a lot about the size and scope of the game. And of course, they said it's going to be a massive, huge game. And one of the interviewers asked them, is the map going to be bigger than in The Witcher 3? And they said, not particularly. For them, it's not about bigger maps, but they said it's probably going to be a similar size like The Witcher 3, but the world building itself is going to be deeper. That's what they are focusing on, and I love to hear that, because we don't need bigger maps, we need better designed maps in open world games. Nobody likes these massive maps that are just filled with question mark points and tons of bloated stuff that is not fun to play. But we want a rich, a dense, a deeper open world design that is a meaningful design. And so that's what they had to say about this. So it's not going to be a bigger map per se than in The Witcher 3, but a lot deeper. What do you think about this?
What was that for? Sorry.
The map size. They're not. They're not. They confirmed. You were distracted, weren't you?
Confirmed.
Larger. It's not going to be larger than The Witcher 3. It's similar size, but they want to focus on building a deeper
world.
A deeper world, and
Does deeper to them mean more cave systems, more underground areas?
No, it's not how I interpreted it. No, I think deeper is more meaningful stuff to do. More better simulation, better feeling of a living, breathing world. And I think they already did a fantastic job in Cyberpunk and Witcher 3. I mean, remember Witcher 3, the first time you ride into Novigrad and everyone is living their lives, and it just felt like a real living city. Yeah. And they nailed that as well in Cyberpunk. And things like that is what I would consider deeper. It's not like deeper caves.
Yeah, I mean, it could be both, to be fair. It could be deeper and deeper. It just, if they're fleshing out the world a little bit more, but I would imagine that comes with the fact that there's obviously been technological advancements over time as well that allows them to do so. Bigger kind of crowds and things like that in some of the cities, a little bit more, like you say, a bit more meaningful quests and tasks and things to do. But even saying that, there wasn't many non-meaningful kind of things to do in The Witcher, and everything felt good. And I liked the way, because I remember watching a a discussion around creating the world of The Witcher and the way that they do points of interest across the world, where they like only want you to go a certain thing and until you see something that's of interest or something to explore. So you'll go here and you'll see something there and you'll think, what's that over there? So you'll go and explore it and something will happen. And you'll go, oh, okay. And there's only a certain distance that they'll do that on the map to where within that distance there will be something to look at in every direction. So they've already, and the way that they crafted the world, it was already very interesting. So the map size in itself, the map was huge anyway. And I'm glad that they're not really going to be doing anything bigger because it doesn't need to be bigger. Like worlds don't need to be ginormous, especially when you think about it. It's like medieval. Yeah. You're talking going around on a horse. You're not driving anywhere, flying anywhere. So your transport speed is limited. So it's not like you're going to get from point A to point B in the flash of a hat.
I mean, Siri can use portals, right?
Of course, you can use portals and teleportation, and obviously you can fast travel and things like that. But I mean, from a realistic perspective,
I agree. I agree.
You're not driving around with everything, so it's not like a GTA that you can understand why they're doing it maybe 2 or 3 times bigger because it takes like only 10 minutes to drive around the entire map.
And to be fair, the map in Witcher 3 was already gigantic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was already huge. Plural. It doesn't need to be bigger. So if it's going to be the same, but there's going to be more in it and more meaningful things to do within it, then yeah, I'm all for it. It doesn't need to be bigger. I think one of the things that a lot of people mentioned, even if you think back to Red Dead, was that Red Dead was ginormous, and sometimes getting between point A to point B before you fast travel specifically was horrific because it was big.
Yeah.
Like, may as well put the kettle on because it's gonna take a while.
Agree.
And that's what you don't want. That's not what you want between missions, is to just sit there and go, okay, well now I've got at least 20 minutes of horse riding to go until I get to
I agree.
And I think that's a lot of people just don't have the time for that now. What I like with a lot of these, especially with the likes of Cyberpunk and Witcher, for instance, is you can go on. You can turn on the Witcher, for instance. You can go to a hunt board. You can find a hunt, and you can go and do that hunt, and that is your mission for the night.
Yeah,
and then you can turn it off, or you can go and do one of the main story sections, and you can save it, and you can turn it off.
Yeah.
There's always something to do in that game that you can just turn the game on, do a little part of it, and then turn it off again.
Yeah.
And that's the way I like these games. Same with Cyberpunk. I can just turn it on and go, right, okay, I can do a hunt. I can just go and do this for a bit and then do it. And that's it, turn it off. Or I can do one of the missions.
I agree.
So I like the pace of it. So, yeah, it does not concern me that the map's not bigger. The map was massive anyway, so that's fine. And I'm glad that they're choosing to go down the route of just making it a little bit more meaningful content, and remember a denser world, hopefully, like you say, with more, maybe some more bustling cities, some more big bustling cities to go through that might have something going on or different areas to explore.
Yeah, agree. All right, Dutch. Let us move on from The Witcher 4. We could fill the entire podcast.
What about you, though? No, because you've asked me the question. What about you? What do you think?
I explained my thoughts on it. You were just not listening, man.
I was listening, but I want to know what's your ideal thing on the map size and all denser world.
Yeah, I'm all for denser worlds. I don't need a bigger map, bigger, and just like. If I look at games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla comes to mind, massive map,
yeah.
But mostly filled either with meaningless stuff to do or just nothing. Yeah. Remember Just Cause 3, biggest map ever, right? And there was literally nothing to do in it. So I don't like that. I don't need the biggest of maps. It's not about map size. Yeah, we're not comparing games on based on their map size. We compare them in how good the world is crafted. And I'd rather have a smaller map that is filled with meaningful things to do. Luke in the chat brings up a great point, and systems to interact with, different systems, different things to do. You know, a good
Yeah.
simulation of a world where the world feels like it's really inhabited by the NPCs. And
I want to ask you a question, actually, that's a little
Sure.
bit different, a little bit more different twist on this. If you could choose between maybe the denser cities within the game, so a little bit like the larger areas, the significantly larger city areas, or more well-crafted hamlets, so the kind of smaller towns that you find around the place, but each one of them's got some weird mystery or something going on. But even they're a little bit more fleshed out. Would you rather choose the cities to be like bigger and more booming, or would you rather choose more well-crafted little hamlets that are like more common?
You mean, so basically either more Novigrads and yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, it depends on the story and if the cities make sense. If they are just there for the sake of it, I'd rather go with the little hamlets like you described. But
I think the reason I like the little hamlets idea is because it's all you tend to find with those is, especially, and everyone knows that, because there's always a town in someone's country where they're kind of disconnected from everybody else's stuff, so they've always got their own stories to tell, and always something's going on, but only in that little village. And I think the mysteries and the weirdness that can happen in the story
exactly
crafted a lot better than they can for a big city.
Where
usually it's all just political nonsense and things like that, and do this for money, which
and you don't, Novigrad was such a special place because it was unique in itself. And if you have like 5 of them scattered around the map, they could lose their what makes it so special. It's like it was this going into Novigrad. You had like, okay, this is this gigantic city. It's the capital. It's the where folks live, and then you leave that and you go to the small villages, and people live there too, just in a different way, and it feels very different, and I like that. So yeah, at the end of the day, it needs to tie in properly into the story or in the side quests to make sense. So yeah,
nice.
All right, Dutch. We will come back to The Witcher 4 in future podcasts.
Of course we will.
Of course we will. Like, you can rest assured, whenever there is Witcher news to discuss, we will bring them up over the next couple of years, right? Yeah. Because we're talking forever.
And then when it's out, you're going to get even more.
And then we discuss it even more. So, yeah. Let us move on from The Witcher and get into some weird headlines of the week. I've seen multiple outlets like making headlines just basically for the sake of it. Otherwise, I can't explain it. About some Xbox rumors, right? So the first rumor, a lot of news outlets picked that up, is an alleged insider claimed that there is a developer direct coming in January.
No.
Dutch, as if you needed inside knowledge.
Was it us? Was it us? Because we mentioned that last week?
I don't know. And the week before. And
I'm sure we mentioned the Dev Direct last week and talked about what we think we're going to see it. So was it us? Are we the acclaimed insiders?
I don't know. No, we weren't cited. So it's like we don't even need to discuss whether it's true or not, because I just bring it up. I find it so funny, and I can only highly encourage everyone about these rumors. Like most of these rumors these days from all the alleged insiders are just educated guesses. Why wouldn't they do a developer direct in January, right? They've done over the last 2 years. They were highly critically acclaimed. Everyone knows that a developer direct is coming. There's no reason why they would move away from that very successful and very popular format and not do a developer direct in January. If so, they would have addressed it by now and said, hey, we're not doing a developer direct this year in January. We have something else planned for next year or something like that. There would be a statement like that out. So you don't need insider knowledge.
Yep.
Another rumor out there, and really that's just all I want to say about this. Just think for yourself. Whenever you see these rumors, like we've seen it so many times in the past with tons of other rumors, you don't need to have inside knowledge for most of them, right?
We've got a big insider here in the chat with Luke. If you have a look, he's breaking news here.
Oh, yeah. He's breaking news. He's heard that the Game Awards are going to be in December as well. Oh, good. You see? It's... Luke, man, we need to get you back on the show.
As well, by the way.
Yeah. It's like we don't need insiders. There are just certain things. Like the other week, this rumor was floating around. Apparently, one game got delayed out of 2025 from Xbox. All right. You don't need to be an insider. Of course, they have like 5-6 big games already coming next year. There is gonna be stuff, especially stuff that isn't announced yet, probably delayed eternally.
That's the funniest thing that I've read this week. Last week, sorry, was all of the people that were saying, "Oh, there's a big game from Microsoft that was being delayed from 2025," and it's none of the games that have actually been announced for 2025. It's a game that was never announced for 2025.
Like, what is this kind of news or alleged insider knowledge? You know? Oh, by the way, I have heard that I don't know, any studio, Double Fine is working on a new game. Man. Really?
Yeah, for the past couple of years, they've just been literally just on vacation.
I said, okay. Yeah. Oh, really? So shocker, right? It's like, so just take these kind of rumors always with a grain of salt and think for yourself, could you have made that guess as well? And for most rumors these days, that's actually true, right?
Yeah.
There are certain legit insiders that have leaked stuff before and that obviously have sources, but for the most part, especially if some weird YouTuber or guy on Reddit or whatever is the source, just be careful. We can do educated guesses as well and sell them as, man, I have heard that. I have heard that, you know, Compulsion, they got a big budget now. I've heard that. Oh. Right? Super
really
big. They're big. And South of Midnight is going to be a massively bigger game than any of the previous titles. I've heard that. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, these things. So another rumor that came out this week, and people have been discussing that online, also take it with a super big grain of salt, is Oblivion apparently gets a remake announced at the Developer Direct in January.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's going to be Dev Direct, but they've already discussed that. I mean, it's been a kind of one of those really poorly kept secrets that they've been doing something. In the background for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, we've.
I don't know whether or not it's going to be Dev Direct, but it's definitely something. It's like a remastered. I don't even know if it's a full scale remake, but it's
I don't know.
Some form
either.
Remaster.
Some rumors say it's going to be made in Unreal 5 now, as if Bethesda game from Bethesda Studios. You know, it's just like, again, we've heard that rumor so many times before. It's similar with the Gears collection, right? I've heard about the Gears collection, right? I've heard that, Dutch, and it's gonna be announced somewhere next year, probably at the June showcase. And if things don't turn out, hey man, plans change, right?
Yeah.
Plans change all the time.
Change every year.
They change every week, man. It's like, so not that I'm against an Oblivion remake. I would actually love that. I really did enjoy Oblivion. But it's just
the one thing I've said this, like, with why Skyrim was my favorite anyway, was the one thing I detested about Oblivion, which is what I detested about Zelda, the newer one,
Breath of the Wild.
Newer ones. Yes, was the breaking equipment.
Yeah,
hate it with a passion. It's like you hit someone 5 times with a sword and it breaks. You're like, that's not realistic.
Yeah, I don't. It's. I did really love Oblivion. I actually love all the Elder Scrolls games. If I think about my first one was Elder Scrolls 2. I've never played the first one. Daggerfall was my first one, which was really good at its time. Morrowind actually blew me away on the OG Xbox. It was like mind-blowing that a game of this scope can run on a console, because those have been like previously like only available on PC until that point.
Their first full-fledged partnership with Microsoft to get that onto console, wasn't it? Oblivion. And
no, Morrowind was.
Was it Morrowind that was?
Yeah,
the first one?
Morrowind was the first one.
Is that the first one on
that
console?
Was on the OG Xbox. And actually, I think to this day, Morrowind was the one that made me an Xbox first gamer, because I've never experienced a game of that scope on a console. And I thought, like, hey, if consoles can do that now, I don't have to play mainly on PC anymore. I can just move over and play mainly on console. And that was Morrowind, actually, that game. So, and when Oblivion came out, I mean, Oblivion, the first game with microtransactions ever. Remember that horse armor? Everyone was making fun of it. People are never going to spend a single cent on just a cosmetic in a game, right? It was the very first microtransaction in a game ever. And but that's not what I remember it for. I remember it for a great story, a great world that blew me away when the 360 came out, right? It was a timed exclusive at the time, and then it was fantastic. So I'd love to revisit that world, although I must admit I wouldn't have the time in 25 for that. Too many
RPGs.
Too many big RPGs coming next year. There's
a lot of Western RPGs coming.
The only remake I'm probably going to play next year is going to be the Gothic remake. I really want to re-experience that.
You can understand that. That's an oldie.
It's one of my favorite RPGs. It's what made me an RPG lover, right? So anyway, moving on from these rumors, let's get into, well, I wouldn't call it a rumor, more like a report, and that goes out to Windows Central. They reported something that Xbox is working on a cross-platform user interface. So the idea is, since everything is an Xbox now, right? And we have like a real breakup in between or within the ecosystem. So you can't buy games on cloud. You can't even play most of your games that you own on cloud. You have, when you go to the PC app, it's a very different experience than what you have on the console and so this everything's an Xbox in theory, yes, but they are not there yet, and this is apparently one move towards that. It's called Project Rainway, and it's a
Who comes up with these project names?
I don't know. But I mean, I think almost every company has those project names and code names for things. I work in the automotive industry. Yeah, no secret. I'm an engineer working in the automotive industry. We have that too, because usually what you don't want to happen is, especially in gigantic corporations, a lot of people know about this stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And you don't want and things leak all the time, not just in the gaming industry, everywhere in engineering. And you want to make it as hard as possible for your competitors to figure out what you're actually working on. But for instance, in my industry, if you would just call the next car line in development the successor to this and that car line, everybody would exactly know what you're targeting at. But that's why you give it code names, right? And so this isn't really that uncommon in the
of course, yeah. I just meant more how the silliness of the name that and project.
Well, we have project names and numbers, yeah. So you're working on project 456, yeah, man. But only if I finish project 789.
A little bit more sense. Like if it's going to make the process more fluid, then project fluidity.
Jesus, when we hire new people, we give them like a list. Okay, these are the current projects we are working on, and you have to memorize like 50 different numbers or 25 different numbers with all the different project names. It is like you're going crazy with this shit. So actually, maybe these kind of wordings are easier to remember. Anyway, that's not the topic, Dutch. It's not the project name. It is now. Anyway,
project fluidity and be done with it.
Yeah.
Make everything more fluid. There you go. Project.
There you go. So they are working on a cross-platform user interface that features that apparently has some features that are inspired by BattleNet, according to Windows Central. Yeah. I want to quote real quick something. Sources tell us that Microsoft is also working on a set of in-game APIs and user interface features. Called Project Rainway, which is some form of cross-platform Xbox guide menu. So it's not just the actual interface, it's also a couple of in-game APIs. My first thoughts went towards game clipping, recording, screenshots, things like that, because that's also a very different experience when you play on cloud, when you play on PC, when you play on consoles. About very different mechanics behind that, how that works. So I could see that being one of the things. But anyway, do you think that's what Xbox needs? Is this something you are interested in?
I mean, if they intend on making a Windows-based handheld, that's going to allow you to play Game Pass games and potentially things like Steam games and things like that as well, then yes, they will need a UI that allows integration of everything you have. If it's, as they mentioned, a cross-platform UI change that allows that integration, does that stretch into? This is where it gets difficult to understand. Does that also include things like PlayStation, Nintendo for future reference? And I say future reference because if they truly want to have everything is an Xbox, right? Their ultimate goal their ultimate goal, and Phil Spencer's even said it himself, we would love to have Game Pass on PlayStation, on Nintendo, if possible. Whether or not that happens is another story, but that is the ultimate goal, is to have that. Now, if you get into that stage and that does occur, then the UI that encompasses everything from all platforms to keep track of what you've got, what you haven't got, so on and so forth, would make sense. I think that the ultimate goal to have that is understandable. Does it make a difference to me? Only from a handheld perspective. It doesn't really make much of a difference to me from a PC perspective. PC, in general, its app and its fluidity and things like that consistently needs improving. It's okay. It's not the best. The Windows Store downloads on PC aren't great, just in terms of speeds and the way they go compared to console. Horrific, in fact. And some of the features that you have on, and some of the performances that you have on titles on the Xbox PC app versus on Steam, the game performances are also differing because of certain
APIs
that they've been for the APIs,
that's very true.
And I've mentioned one of my friends, actually, notoriously, he's a COD player, just plays COD.
Yeah.
And he said himself, he downloaded the Call of Duty thing because it was on Game Pass. He downloaded it on the Xbox app. And although Call of Duty 6 worked fine, Call of Duty Warzone was just worked terribly, and you couldn't use some of the NVIDIA filters that they use on the Xbox app, and they only worked whilst he was on Battle.net.
Okay.
So he ended up having to uninstall it on Game Pass and getting it on Battle.net, you pay for it on Battle.net so that you would have a more fluid experience and be able to use his NVIDIA filters. So there's lots of things that's wrong with the PC app on Xbox that they need to fix in order to make people actually convert over to that on PC specifically. Because they will continue to use the likes of Battle.net or Steam because they just run better than the games that you can download on the Xbox PC app.
Yeah, that's very, very good point. It didn't sound to me that that's the issue they are addressing. It looked to me more like that the UI, the storefront, and everything. Yeah. So before I give my thoughts, let me shout out really quick a couple of supers that came in. Dave Ramos sends in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 41 months now. Which is awesome. Thank you so much for the continued support. He says, Rainway was a remote desktop video game streaming service for Windows. It allowed users to stream locally installed applications to other devices. I did not know that. That's very interesting. So bringing back basically the connection of, okay, we have to interact in between different devices. Maybe that's one of the APIs, that the things like cross-save work better, especially for games that are not directly in Game Pass and support Play Anywhere, right? Yeah. Something we don't have. A couple of games like the CD Projekt Red games, they do have their own cross progression in between PC and consoles and everything else, and but it's done through GOG, right? So that's an interesting thing. I did not know that. And then Fanto sends in a channel member chat for being a channel member for 18 months. Thank you so much, man. And he says, Merry Christmas to my favorite podcaster brothers. Merry Christmas to you. And again, a Merry Christmas to all people here in the chat. By the way, we would absolutely appreciate it if you guys could hit the like button, and if you're new here to the channel, of course, consider subscribing. It would be highly appreciated. But this new interface, I mean, the idea is clear. Yeah, everything's on Xbox now. Everything is is where you can, everything that has a screen basically plays your Xbox games, your game, at least the Game Pass games, and to have like a unified user interface for that makes total sense. My initial thought was maybe they are a little too early for that. And what do I mean by that? That the thing is, I'm still 100% convinced, and I've been saying this for almost a year now, ever since the talk about next-gen consoles started, which, by the way, is, if you think about it, we heard like next-gen talk at the very beginning of this year, right? That was, we were barely 3 years into the generation, and I can't think of another generation where the next-gen talk started that early, when all these rumors came up that Xbox is going to launch in 26 and the next-gen and everything. So it also tells you something about this generation of consoles. Anyway.
Well, for one platform.
For one platform, at least. True that. Anyway, the thing is, I'm 100% convinced that the next Xbox, whenever it may come out, is at its core running Windows, and that the console OS will be a thing of the past. They will. This is the one benefit that Microsoft has over all others, right? They own Windows. They own basically the PC market with that. Like, I know there's Linux out there, but nobody's using that. It's like they own PC through Windows. And I don't think we are going to boot into our desktop. They will make this.
Yeah, like a Steam Big Picture version.
It's your own launcher, but at its core, it's running Windows. It will also a lot of things simplify. You would also simplify a lot of things for the developers, because developers have to develop their games anyway for PC. I mean, they develop them on PC, right? Games now, especially from Xbox, come day and date to PC. Every time they have to make a separate, different version of that game, because all the APIs, the OS, the GDK, it's all different. And it's extra work. It's simply extra work. And they will try to leverage that. They will kind of emulate the old Xbox OS for being backward compatible. And they will have a dedicated Windows-based launcher, so it doesn't look like you booting into Excel and PowerPoint when you boot up the console, but at its core, it runs Windows. And I'm 100% convinced that this is the direction where they are going for, because that would be a true step into this whole everything's an Xbox, right? And so with that thought in mind, when you talk about a new unified user interface, honestly, even though the report on Windows Central didn't make that connection, I'm 100% convinced that this is what this is. This is this new unified user interface that is actually a Windows launcher, just looking more like a console OS, that you will be able to boot up whether you are on PC, the old Game Pass or Xbox app on PCs will be gone. You will have the same app you boot into on PC, on your console, on your handheld, and the cloud. I don't know what they do with the cloud, but it will look similar, right? But this is what this is. This is at least my educated guess. No insider knowledge. We talked about that earlier in the show. It's an educated guess. I truly believe that this is what they are going for. With that, they would be able to bring other third-party stores easy to the console, right? Steam, Epic, whatever. Good old games. They would take away the pain for developers to develop different separate versions for consoles and PC, right? hopefully with that, they will never ever have to deal with these kind of exclusive deals like we had with Baldur's Gate or with Black Myth Wukong, right? Where Black Myth Wukong is still not announced, and they missed out on one of the biggest games this year, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that would never ever happen because you can then just get the game on whatever, Steam or... but it needs to run Windows at its core. It doesn't need to look like Windows. And this is what I think this is. This is their new interface. Also, just one other thing, it's also timed well to like introduce a new user interface. Not that I don't like the current one, it does its job. But if you think about it, we have this look with the guide and everything. We have that kind of interface. They have optimized it over the last couple of years, yes, but we have it now for a decade. When the Xbox One launched, they still had this tile looking that was user interface that was very reminiscent of what Windows Phone looked like, right? And they got rid of that fairly soon after the launch of the Xbox One, and then introduced basically what we have now. And now we have it through, for the most part of the Xbox One generation and this generation. So we have it for at least, I should have fact checked that, but it's probably 10 years plus that we have this style of interface, and this is very uncommon, right? Usually, if you remember, during the 360 days, we had like throughout one generation, we had 3 different types of user interfaces and so on. And I don't need to get like a new user interface every 2 or 3 years. Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's time to like modernize it maybe a little bit. And I don't think they are doing this for this console generation. This is for the next console generation, again, with that dedicated Windows launcher. So I've been going on. What are your thoughts, man?
I can see that, to be honest. Definitely a more unified approach. Like you say, it's been kind of one of those ongoing rumors on the next hardware platform to be a little bit more of a hybrid approach and kind of cover all bases, and potentially even have a Steam launcher and things like that on. So it would make sense for them to kind of redefine what the UI is in order to kind of be all encompassing. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The one thing that the debate around this, the kind of the going forward of Xbox as well, that you just can't seem to have these days on other platforms. If you disagree with what you think the strategy is about, or how their strategy currently is, or as we've mentioned several times, they're saying everything is an Xbox, but they really can't say that right now. So they're kind of jumping the gun a bit, because everything isn't an Xbox at this moment in time, because it's not unified. Like PC isn't really unified with console. It's not really unified with cloud. It's not really unified with any other platform. It's like it's all kind of mishmash. You can't play everything that you have on your Xbox on your PC. You can't play everything that you have on your PC on your Xbox. You can't play everything that you have on PC and Xbox on cloud. So the everything is an Xbox thing is kind of a fugazi at the moment. It's in theory, yes, possibly. The UI would be a step towards doing that, but ultimately they also need to make sure that everything becomes play anywhere, and whether that be via cloud or otherwise installable, that's the only time it would become unified, truly an Xbox that plays everywhere. Right now it isn't. So everything isn't an Xbox. Everything is kind of half an Xbox. You're muted.
Yeah, I do agree. They are not there yet, right? It's obvious and clear where they are going with their strategy, and that's the ultimate target. But as of right now, I do agree. Rave Demos in the chat brings up a great point. What if Microsoft is not able to acquire the license to play console games on PC for our back catalogs? only new games? What if they are only able to acquire the license for half their library? Oh, I'm 100% sure that this is never ever going to happen, that you will be able to play all your console games on PC. I highly doubt that. Backwards compatibility will still be limited to the console devices themselves. Yeah.
I think it'll be an asterisk beside it. Play all of your games on such and such, where applicable, or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Ultimately, like you said, it was the same with backwards compatible. Like, they couldn't realistically get every game you've ever owned on backwards compatible, because sometimes the rights holders no longer exist, or the people who
or don't agree for whatever reason. If you think about this now, if you think of one of your third-party games, like, I don't know, Dragon Age Veilguard, you just bought that right now on the console. Will you be able to play that through backwards compatible sometime in the distant future on your PC? I highly, highly doubt that. EA will have something against that, and that goes for all the other publishers, nothing against EA specifically, just as an example.
And also the theory on everything is an Xbox and the Xbox Play Anywhere thing as well. Realistically, if you're an Xbox Play Anywhere, or you own a game on Xbox that is an Xbox console, like you own Sea of Thieves, for instance, on Xbox, you're not automatically entitled to that game on PlayStation, even though that's an Xbox title.
I agree.
Realistically, you can't play that game everywhere. Okay, I can own this game here, but then I have to buy it again. And not only that, but then I'm going to have to start a new save over there, or does my save transfer? How can it save transfer over? Is it through the cloud? Their cloud? And I have to pay their cloud services?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are out of their control and in their control, but ultimately the message right now is that they want everything to be able to play everywhere. But realistically, the messaging right now is more of a kind of a wishy-washy grey area. Not everything is an Xbox right now. They want it to be an Xbox.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I'm most certain that they will try to unify console and PC with the next generation of consoles, and that they will run on the same OS, which is Windows-based. They will have a dedicated launcher, and with that they can achieve that, because developers don't have to build a separate version anymore for consoles and PC. It's just gonna be the exact same version, because both run on Windows, and with that the developers and publishers kind of don't have extra work. They will have to agree in the terms of in the license agreements and so on. But this will not go for backwards compatible games. So, but everything that comes out then on the new console, everything else wouldn't really make sense for them with the strategy that they are going for, right?
Yeah, and the one thing that kind of concerns me a little bit on the next gen Xbox, if it were to be able to play Steam, is I think they would need to, the console in itself would have to be more, it would simply have to be a little bit more powerful and more interchangeable, more PC.
I don't think powerful is the bottleneck.
By that I mean more on the, for instance, you couldn't realistically get something, because right now on the console space versus PC space, the consoles are optimized to run on that particular way that the console is set up. So obviously it is an APU. It's a GPU built with an APU.
But many laptops have the same. Yeah, but many laptops, gaming laptops out there also run on an APU. I don't think that this is the limiting factor.
The difference being, though, is that even those gaming laptops have a GPU with dedicated VRAM.
No, they don't. No, they don't. There are plenty of gaming laptops or laptops in general out there that don't have. That have the exact same design with an APU, not a shared memory pool, whatsoever. There are plenty of those,
Yeah.
and they all run the games. You can play basically every Steam game of that, and those, and it's.
I think,
and also from a power perspective, I think it was somewhere in October or November when Steam released their latest statistic on what gamers are playing their games on, and I know everyone thinks about the 4090s when they talk about PC gaming, but it was, I don't have the numbers from the top of my head, but it was like the super vast majority, and I'm talking like 80+%, or it could have even been 90+% of the gamers that play on Steam play on absolute potatoes. Like, the vast majority is still playing on 1070s, 1080 cards. Right, and remember when Indiana Jones came out 2 weeks ago, the outcry about this being one of the very first games that actually requires an RTX card.
Yeah,
like because there are still plenty of gamers out there that don't have the what's it called, the architecture that was introduced with the RTX cards. Sorry, blanking on the architecture name. So I don't think that this is that the power issue is. Also, by the way, I thoroughly believe that Steam will make their own console, whether it's them making it similar to the Steam Deck or if they license it out to a third-party developer. They have this fantastic Steam OS that is basically a console OS.
Yeah, big picture. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have dozens of games that are now certified for Steam OS, right? The huge majority of games that people actually care about is now Steam Deck supported, and with that Steam OS certified, and it's a no-brainer for them to also make, like, either themselves or with a dedicated partner, a Steam console like experience out there. Seeing the success of the Steam Deck, that is basically also a console, right? And just in a different form factor, and they will. And so I don't think that this is generally a problem, a technical problem, if Microsoft runs their console on Windows. I don't think, again, this is the premise here for this discussion, that the next gen Xbox console will run on Windows with a dedicated launcher again. But and then I don't think there's a big technical problem. It's more the licensing stuff, because it would be super interesting to see. I mean, Xbox still makes the money not off the hardware, but of course they want you in their store. That's the business. They want you in the store. And if Steam is not giving Xbox a cut, if people buy games on Steam, they are just not, right? And
unless it's an Xbox game.
And if Steam runs natively on the Xbox console, why would you buy your games on
Xbox?
In the Xbox store? There's literally basically zero reason to do that. Yeah, prices are usually better, customer service is better. It works perfectly seamless with PC. It is. You have your dedicated handheld with the Steam Deck. Granted, Xbox is probably going to have their handheld as well. So it's just this question that is, to me, unclear how that would work. How would they bring people to buy the games in their store if they run Steam natively? I still think that's the ultimate goal, right? To break down the barriers, and maybe if the install base, the console install base drops even lower, they just say, okay, we just screw that kind of revenue and just take the risk and try to do it. But yeah, and then maybe deal with Steam to properly integrate Game Pass into that, or I don't know.
It would be, yeah. And the like you say, the difficulty here is, so what is the real strategy on this next console? If they are going to implement Steam, how are they going to implement how they make money? Are they literally just going to say any Xbox games on Game Pass? Other than that, you just buy it on Steam, or
is Game Pass the basically their store then?
Is that
Is that the store? I don't know. I truly believe that they are trying to do that. But
outside of that, the issue you've got then is you need to make this device that must have to bring people in. But the problem that Xbox have is that you don't see hardware as a focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've said earlier we'll create consoles again. Yeah, but it needs to become a focus. Like the entire building of Xbox in the first place was on console, and I understand they want everything to become a console. You don't care where people play, but you will care when your console numbers are continuing to fall year on year because everything is an Xbox, and people won't need to buy an Xbox anymore, even if it has Steam, because I can just play it on PC, or Steam Deck, or a ROG Ally, or buy my games on PlayStation or on Nintendo.
Exactly. That's
the problem is, and the advertise the whole this is an Xbox thing. The main thing that I've shouted out is none of this advertisement mentions Game Pass.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is the problem. Like the entire this is an Xbox runs off the fact that Game Pass is required. Game Pass,
yeah. And I also think that this is what I said when we talked about this 4 weeks ago or so, when the ad campaign actually launched. It feels like this might be a little too early to claim that. Again, if they unify the experience between console and PC by running Windows in a dedicated launcher on the console, and you have basically the exact same game versions on Xbox console as well as PC, as well as the highly rumored and most likely coming handheld, and you have running Windows on all those, and people and developers don't have to do dedicated versions of their game, and then this becomes much more clearer what it means that everything is an Xbox. But at this point in time, it just isn't yet. But it's the target that they are working for, and we see the steps. I mean, now you can at least play about 50 games that you own on cloud, right? That are not in Game Pass. They're making progress there, but they are just not there yet. Yeah, because if
that's the aim.
And that's the ultimate aim, and it still brings up the question: how would they tie in third-party stores into this? Whether it's Steam, Epic, or anything else, the store question is what baffles me about this strategy. I don't know, and maybe these are just rumors that will never come to fruition because of that. Because to me, it is just hard to see them giving up their revenue. Now, you can bring up the other point. Is Xbox going to be successful in basically, if they don't bring Steam to console, let's put it this way, is Xbox going to, then they basically build a direct competitor towards Steam, right? Because then you have the choice, either buy the game on the Xbox store and get your game on console and on PC and on the Xbox handheld and the cloud and everything, or buy it on Steam, right? Yeah. And with that, you take on Steam as a competitor. That's also not a wise decision because people are too passionate. Steam is there. If you are on PC right now, Steam owns PC gaming, right? Yes, there's Epic and GOG and whatnot, but nobody uses those stores. If you play games on Steam, on PC, you play them through Steam. Some people use the Xbox Game Pass for Game Pass thing, but that's about it. But would you ever buy a third-party game in the Xbox Game Pass store on PC? On the Xbox store, or Xbox Game Pass store doesn't make sense. Sorry, you would not. And
the only time I would is if it's Play Anywhere. An Xbox's strategy going forward for this as an Xbox would theoretically rest on the notion that all third-party games would sign up to the Play Anywhere agreement, which would mean that their game would be purchased once and accessible everywhere.
That's why I said earlier, I doubt that it will be possible for back-compat games. But they could definitely put that in the license agreement going forward if the console runs on Windows and you go to your Ubisofts, your EAs, and so on, the third-party developers, right? And you say, hey, just publish the Windows thing and be done, because you reach not just our millions of console users, but you will also reach the entire PC market with one build. You don't have to do anything, right? Why would a publisher disagree to that, right? Because money, So, Rafe Demos sends in a $5 super chat. Think you so much. He says, if the next-gen Xbox is going to be able to support Steam, does that imply the next-gen Xbox is also going to run on NVIDIA, AMD, ARM, and Intel? I would say yes, because again, it's Windows. This is why it makes so much sense for them. It would run if you let the next Xbox console run on Windows. Again, different look to it, but at its core, it's Windows. The same thing already runs on ARM and runs on NVIDIA and AMD and everything. It's PC, it's Windows. Yeah, this is what this why this makes so much sense for them. And why haven't they done that previously? You can always talk about, it's not possible because of the APIs and things like that. Nevertheless, this is bullshit now, especially ever since going back to DirectX 10, basically. DirectX 10 eliminated that problem. Now we are already in DirectX 12. Maybe DirectX 13 is out by the time the next-gen consoles come out, right? You don't have these issues anymore. Yeah, it's not a thing. The only thing why they haven't done it yet is, if you ask me, my personal opinion, the Xbox division never had the funding within Microsoft to do that, because that is a huge undertaking to do. It's not just that you need the Windows developer to develop a dedicated Windows version that can be run on the console, including the UI and everything, which is a massive cost investment. But it's also probably even the bigger part of the costs is figuring out all the license agreements and things like that, right? This is people underestimate how expensive lawyers are in that regard, and to figure out the business side of things of that. But now, after Microsoft investing $80 billion in ABK and with Bethesda and the ZeniMax acquisition and all the investments that they have done, including the lawyer costs and so on, they have invested more than $100 billion now, in Xbox. And Xbox is bigger than Windows within Microsoft now. It generates more revenue off of than gaming. It generates more revenue than the Windows department now within Microsoft. So now they have leverage within the company, and they didn't have that before. If we go back to the Xbox One launch, even the Series X launch, they were still this nice little department to have within Microsoft, but they didn't set the world on fire. Now that is very different, right? They are the second highest grossing department within Microsoft now after the cloud. Windows isn't generating the money that gaming does now within Microsoft. And now, the big dog comes and say, hey, guys, we need this. Get it done. They didn't have that leverage within the company before. I think it's just my pure speculation why they haven't done it before. But yeah, I thoroughly believe, again, this will be the case for the next gen Xbox. The same Windows OS will run on the handheld. When you launch up the Xbox app that's already running on Windows, no problem. It's all going to be the same thing. And they will try to and honestly, this is also one last thing on that. When Sarah Bond talked about the biggest generational leap, remember that? And we have heard that afterwards a couple of times. I think this is what she meant. It's not about graphics and sheer compute prowess. That's not the thing. The big generational leap is to have this one unified ecosystem, truly unified ecosystem. And honestly, that would be the biggest leap we've seen in a long time in the console space, right?
Yeah, I still think they need to, keep on the promises of actually hitting performance goals and things like that, though, with the next agreement.
What do you mean?
Whatever console they produce next, I personally believe needs to be hitting performance goals. Never mind just a leap on the UI.
Sure.
But the problem they've said every time, and we're going across all of them now, though, but the problem they've said every time is, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. I think the only reason people will actually invest in any of these next platforms for Microsoft isn't just that, but stop telling people it's going to do 60 FPS if most games aren't 60 FPS. Stop telling people it's going to do this if it's not this. Stop telling people it's going to be this if it's not this. Like, if you're going to do an actual next generational leap other than just UI, it's going to have to be...
No, of course. But let's be realistic. The next gen consoles, they've already said, Phil already said, we are not growing the market by releasing $1,000 console. And it's also not going to be, again, $500 at launch. Yeah. So what are we realistically looking here? 600-700 euros, somewhere in that ballpark. 700 plus minus 100. Right? That's the ballpark we are looking at. And PlayStation will do something similar. Maybe they differ 100 euros or so, plus minus, yeah? But it will not be like, even if Xbox comes out at 700 and PlayStation at 800 or so, yeah? It will not be like going from a 4070 to a 4090 for $100. That's not gonna happen. It's gonna be small things. So I fully expect the same thing like we have this gen. Yeah, we have very similarly spec'd consoles again. The only thing that could change that up is if either one of them is going to ditch AMD. And
we know that PlayStation's not.
Exactly. We know that PlayStation is not. They already signed the contract with AMD. So, and this is actually was supposed to be our next topic. Mark Cerny's talk about the PS5 Pro specs and so on, in which he basically confirmed that they are already working with AMD for the PS6 to improve the NPU to run PSR better and so on. All confirmed. Yeah. And you bet your ass that whatever chip Microsoft is going for, they are going to have an NPU as well. Yeah, there is no... Again, you don't have to be an insider to know that. This is just an educated guess. There will be some sort of NPU in the next Xbox, as well as the PS6. The only differentiator would be if Xbox would, for instance, go for NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Right? That would make a differentiator. We're still not looking like leaps and bounds different or so. It would be just different because one runs PSSR, the other one runs DLSS then, right? But in terms of, I do agree that they will have to improve the specs and everything, and it's going to be, again, it's not going to be as cheap as this gen or last gen or any of the previous gens. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. Let's say, for the sake of argument, they settle at around $700, right? So for $700, you will get whatever you can get at the point in time for $700 in that machine, and it's going to be running better and so on. But is it... If Sarah Bond and all the others at Xbox that have spoken about this, the biggest leap ever. It's not gonna be for a $700 console. Yeah, it is gonna be better. It will have NPUs, and you will hear a lot of AI talk around it, no doubt. Probably a little bit more RAM, faster GPU, faster CPU, all that. But realistically, the last big jump we had in a console generation is way back when we went from 32 bits to a 64-bit generation. Like, remember the jump from the Super Nintendo towards the N64? I'm talking like that kind of jump where you were like, whoa, what is this Mario in 3D? Yeah. And Jesus, this was not possible. And ever since, if we look the jump from 360 to Xbox One, yeah, you could tell the games ran all a little better graphics, better resolution, but you didn't have that feel of this is a jump. And when we went from the Xbox One or PS4 generation to PS5 and Series X, respectively, we had 3 years cross-gen, right? Everything ran a little better, a little higher resolution there, all cool, all good. We all took it and love it and good. But is it this, it's a jump, a generational leap like you have never seen before? And do you really expect that to happen with the next gen hardware, which will be better? Yes, and it will have AI, of course. But do you expect that jump to be like such a big leap? No way. But if you take it really serious, the biggest leap we've ever seen is if the next Xbox runs on Windows, it runs the same games, it's a true seamless experience, which we don't have today. I have to double dip with every game that I buy on console. I have to buy it again on PC. It's not a seamless experience. If they eradicate that limitation that we have today, buy a Dragon Age Veilguard on console and just pick right up on PC. The display anywhere mentality, basically forcing that into the entire market by simply running everything on Windows. PCs are already running on Windows, and you let the consoles run on Windows, and that would be a true game changer in how we play on console. And I truly do think that this is what Sarah Bond meant when she's talked about the biggest generational leap. It's not about hardware specs.
I think my main concern and my problem with all of the talk about the next gen hardware is I think always going to be undermined by the current marketing strategy that you don't need to own hardware. So they could have the most...
That's a different conversation to be had. Yeah.
It's the most advanced thing that they've ever done. Great. But you've just told us I don't need an Xbox. So why should I buy this? Why should I go out and buy this hardware if I don't need this hardware? You've told me I don't need an Xbox because everything's an Xbox. So now you're telling me I do need an Xbox. So why do I need an Xbox if everything's an Xbox? So it's like a contradictory marketing strategy that they've got going on here before they introduce hardware. hardware. It's like, so I do need. So tell me why I need this over just playing something else that'll play these Xbox games. You tell me why I need that, and sell me that.
Because you then really have that seamless transition, and you can pick up your PC games in the living room under your TV with that Xbox, and you truly have that seamless experience. We only have that right now for certain games in Game Pass.
Okay, so that counts for the specifically the hardcore that buy day one. Now the casuals who don't game anywhere else but on console.
Yeah, what do they lose? They don't. For them, it's gonna be a very similar experience like it always has been. But you boot up the console, you buy the game, and you play the game.
But if all your games are going elsewhere anyway.
Yeah, sure. If you decide to rather play on PC, sure. I'm fully with you. You need a unique selling point. Yeah, I'm fully with you there. This is
my problem, and going into this because we started the gen positively, and I'd say that they didn't have an exclusive, which was one of the problems for launching the console. But it started relatively positively. The second year on, it did really well. First year was a bit lackluster. Second year did really well. Third year was lackluster. Fourth year really well. But ultimately, they're now into a marketing strategy here where the hardware, they've been shouting from the rooftops, you don't need to buy a console because you can play our games everywhere. And month after month, and now year over year, hardware sales are declining.
Yeah.
To the point where it's now...
Just the other day, Matt Piscatella reported... Just the other day, Matt Piscatella reported on the America sales, went down almost 30% year over year, while PlayStation has been growing 6%, right? I do agree that this is a different conversation to be had. Yeah,
but long term. But my issue is with it's all well and good creating this hardware, but long term, that my concern ultimately about the hardware is that it could all be for nothing if their marketing strategy is telling people not to get it. Ultimately, if sales continue to decline, even if that hardware is great, because you tell people not to get hardware and just play Xbox games anywhere else, then at some point, the CEOs are going to say, why are we spending hundreds of millions on R&D and creating this
and running the ecosystem, having the servers up, supporting the store?
Just ship games and be done with the hardware section because it's just a loss.
I'm fully with you.
That's in the chat earlier as well. I think it was Masuko asked the question: would console declining hardware numbers also mean that they would lose out on third-party sales revenue for games? And ultimately they would. If
the business model is the same as it is right now. Absolutely. Yeah. Right now, Xbox, and this is why I always kind of have to laugh when people say it's not about the hardware sales. It absolutely is about the hardware sales right now. Why? Because with the hardware, you sell the store. The store is what makes the money, right? You buying a FIFA, a Call of Duty, a Dragon Age Veilguard in the Xbox store, that is what they make the money off, right?
Yeah.
And yes, you make money as well if you sell your games on Steam, just not as much because you have to pay the 30% cut to Steam, right? And now the question really is, right now, selling the hardware is selling the store.
Yeah.
When you buy an Xbox, you have the only option you can buy games is through the Xbox store. You sell the store. So install base absolutely matters. Yeah. And it is this ongoing discussion of, it's not about the hardware sales anymore. It's never been about the hardware sales. It's been about selling the store. And it makes a huge difference if you have 30 million out there that have the console store, or if you have 100 million, like PlayStation will have at the end of the generation, right? Not saying that Xbox will end up at 30, but I don't know where they will end up, let's say 40 million. And it makes a huge difference if you have 40 million potential customers buying games in your store, or if you have 100 million buying games in your store. That's the difference. And that's why hardware sales matter with the business model they have right now. And since Xbox is absolutely not happy with the install base they have, that's why they lashed out and did all these other things, right? And I still firmly believe that it's not a big problem to have PC and console coming day and date and everything, because these are just two different audiences. Yes, we in our hardcore bubble here, there are plenty of gamers out there that just say, well, you are one good example. Yeah, you said it on this show. I don't see really a reason why not to build me a proper gaming PC next gen and just be done with the Xbox console. Yes, there are, out of the 30, 40 million Xbox console users right now, there are probably 1 million like you, maybe 2 million like you. But it's not a vast majority, because the experiences are very different. Whether you play on PC, bound to your desk, you have to deal with Windows and have to deal with all the inconvenience that comes with PC. Or if you just go into the living room, turn the console on and game. Yeah, and this is just a different audience. But Xbox has,
on the flip side of that, then you have, and I've seen it numerous times, people cancelling Game Pass because they just don't make the most of it. And that's because a lot of the gamers, well, first of all, they don't have enough time to make the most of Xbox Game Pass. A lot of people don't, even I don't. I still have it, naturally, because I want to use it. I want to try out different things, etc. Even though I might not have all the time. Some users, though, at the end of the day, will weigh up, okay, well, realistically, there might be 2 or 3 games a year I want to get from Xbox that are going to Game Pass. Game Pass is good, but ultimately I'm not using it as much as I thought I might use it. So next generation, if Xbox games are going to PlayStation anyway, do I just pick up a PlayStation and then just buy these 1 or 2 games a year on there? And ultimately, it's still 1 or 2 games a year.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I don't think it's a problem to bring games day and date to PC and console. I really don't. This is not the vast majority of the casual gamers will go from console to PC or vice versa. And even if so, they basically own anyway both, right? And it is with Windows and the console. So that's really not, I don't think that this is hurting console sales in the bigger picture. Yeah. But like you said, bringing it to other consoles where you then say, okay, I just get the PlayStation. I can get the 1 or 2 or 3 games from Xbox that I want to play a year. Yes, I can't get them through Game Pass, but then I don't need another subscription service because I have too many already with Amazon and Netflix and Disney and Spotify and everything. People are kind of getting sick. I have 6, 7 subscription services right now. Yeah, from Spotify to Netflix to Disney to Game Pass. And there are a lot of, especially when you go into the casual market, there are a lot of people that exactly think like that. And then they say, okay, hey, then I can't play Doom in Game Pass. I just buy it because it's one of the 2 games I'm going to be buying anyway this year only. Yeah. So the casuals, they work there differently. And I also think that this is what we've been talking about on this podcast basically the entire year. I'm skeptical of this. We bring our games to PlayStation because it will eventually lead to the real fact that are they going to have a unique selling point for their console? If not, right? If they don't have that unique selling point, It's not longer exclusives. They don't exist anymore. It's Game Pass. Is Game Pass enough to be a unique selling point? Well, it hasn't been for the last 7 years. Game Pass isn't new. Game Pass exists since 2017, right? It hasn't been a unique selling point for the last 7 years. Why is it going to change? Is it going to change because they have the games now? You kind of have to admit, so far, Game Pass, and we can discuss the console warriors will come at me, but for the most part... But
even from Call of Duty, if you had a look at that Matt Piscatella thing, it only went up 6%.
Yeah, it didn't help that much, right?
Nope.
You can, and people will hate me for saying this, but for the most part over the last 7 years, Game Pass has been very similar to the offering that PlayStation Plus has, right? In PlayStation Plus, you also get a bunch of games. The only differentiator between PlayStation Plus and Game Pass is the day and date thing. But if you don't have the games to support that day and date value, and for the most part over the last 7 years, they didn't have them. All right, they had their 1 or 2 games a year, or nothing, like in 2022, right? Yeah. So is Game Pass really the differentiator to sell the unique selling point? So far, it hasn't been. It might change a little because if they continue to be consistent with their game releases, and we are at this point now where they finally start to release like every quarter one of the big games, and and if they keep that up for a couple of years, 2 years, 3 years, right, it might change the general perception. Is Game Pass a unique selling point? It could be, but I don't think that for the casual market out there, especially not with the way how they handle advertisement and marketing in general, people don't even know that Game Pass exists. So it's really not. How would that be a unique selling point? So now the question is, what can Microsoft do? Right, and the one thing is keep the exclusives on PC and console, and their console only. Obviously, they chose not to do that. And the other thing is, and this is why we need to shout out also Deadly Headley for his awesome video, by the way. Right, is the question: who are going to be our new customers? Who can we bring into our ecosystem? Because it will be hard to convince PC gamers to move over to console. They are locked into Steam. They have thousands of games on Steam, right? Is it going to be the PlayStation gamer? Maybe a few. It could be if you think everything that Xbox brings out next year would be an Xbox exclusive. People would, man, I really want to play that new Doom game. And I can also, Indiana Jones looks so awesome. And Fable, I need to play that. And I want to play Avowed that is getting a lot of praise. And you could move some of those people over. Yes, you could potentially. Will you grow exponentially? Also not, because people will get the Xbox as a secondary console because they still... have their big libraries on PlayStation locked in. But the new customers, the upgrade, are the younger generation, right? They don't have that history with PlayStation and have been playing for 15 years there and building their libraries there and their friend lists there. They grew up either on the iPad or on the Nintendo Switch, and now it's time to move into the maybe what I would call more serious gaming area, because now I want to play a Dragon Age and I can't do that on my Switch. I need to get something else. Those new customers, but these kind of customers are more, and I'm with them on that, interested in, I want to play everywhere. I have my laptop that I use for school or university, I want to play there a little bit. Maybe I have a console at home, or man, I travel so much. I need a handheld, and maybe the handheld with docking mode is enough for me to play at home on the console. They want to, And you still could have that. And that would be a unique selling point. Make that seamless, like we discussed earlier with Windows running on console. Make that seamless to go from console to PC to handheld. Make that truly seamless, which it isn't right now. It's absolutely not seamless. It's anything but. I've been calling this the third-party problem ever since I owned the ROG Ally, which is now for 1.5 years. I've been talking about this third-party problem. Yeah, if I want to play Dragon Age Veilguard on my handheld, I have to buy the games twice. I don't have cross progression. I have to have 2 save files. This is not a seamless experience. If you provide that would be a unique selling point. That would be absolutely a unique selling point that would really truly differentiate yourself from PlayStation and Nintendo. So maybe that's the route they are going for, and then they say exclusives don't matter anymore. This is our unique selling point. I think that's the way they are going for. They will unify this experience and get rid of this third-party problem that you have to have right now if you move in between 2 devices, from Xbox to PC or a PC handheld or to cloud, right? You buy a game on the console and you can't play it anywhere else. They remove that, and that's their unique selling point. And with that, they don't need the third party. I think that's their strategy. Will that work? This is the other question. I hope so, because if this console sales will decline even further, we have seen it within Microsoft so many times. Look at Windows Phone, look at Zune, look at what they are doing right now with Surface, right? They get rid of that stuff. And then we will end up eventually with no Xbox console. Maybe. If the sales go down even further, and they really have not been good this gen for them. Year over year, they go down. This is the only direction.
My ultimate concern about the brand is that because their marketing strategy is clear that they're not bothered about hardware.
Yeah.
And they're saying, we're going to make more hardware. That's great, but you've also said you're not bothered about hardware. So if you're not bothered about its success, then why would we be bothered about its success? Like, you're telling us outright, we're not bothered if you play on console. Well, you should be bothered if you play on console, because that's a large chunk of your market. So tell your console preferred players, the people who want to play on console, who specifically want to play on console, why getting the next console is something they need to do. You need to justify that to people. You need to say why getting an Xbox hardware is something that needs to be done. But they don't want to do that because their marketing strategy is you can just play everywhere. That's right. Okay, great. Fantastic. But you still need to sell hardware.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you don't, and hardware continues to do this, which it has been since the Xbox 360 gen, down and down and down and down and down, at some point, if it's sub 20 million and you've only got, at the end of a generation, 20 million units sold, you go into the next one and you think,
are we bothering to do that, or are we not just going full third party? Yeah, that's the legit concern. And since the counter argument is always the industry is changing. The industry really isn't changing. There's nothing changing about the industry. PlayStation isn't bringing God of War to Xbox consoles. Yes, they are bringing it to PC. Again, 2 different markets. That's why Nintendo also exists kind of in their own right? Nintendo isn't considered in the same be in the same gaming market segment than Xbox and PlayStation is. There's barely any games other than third-party and indie games, first-party and indie games coming to Nintendo Switch, and still it's the most successful console, period. Yeah, it overtook the PS2 in console sales, by the way, which is nuts, right? So Nintendo isn't doing this. They are not bringing Mario to PlayStation and Xbox, and PlayStation isn't bringing God of War to Xbox or Nintendo. The way is the market everyone is what is changing is that they are recognizing, hey, PC really isn't in a big way. Some players, yes, small minority, the hardcore bubble, might say, hey, if everything from PlayStation comes to PC, I'm not gonna get a PlayStation console, but I just get a PC. Good for them. Yeah, they recoup that with game sales anyway. But with the mass market, the general market, I believe PC and console are two different markets. And with that, the industry isn't changing. Nobody is doing it except Xbox. So this isn't really the argument I would or I see as a reason. This is nonsense.
And they don't have. And the thing is with PlayStation and Nintendo, like you mentioned, because they've got a giant user base, they have absolutely no requirement to do that either.
Yeah.
Because they can tap into the multiple 100 million PC market and the 100 million plus console market.
Exactly. And how did they get to that giant user base? They have had consistently great games, right? They had consistently great games. Nintendo has been putting out unique selling points in their games. Mario, Zelda, Pokemon. These are beloved IPs. PlayStation has done that for the most part for the entire PS4 generation, and they have done it for at least in the beginning of this generation. They are lacking now, right now. But Xbox has not been consistent for a good decade plus, and this is changing now. This is very much changing now. We've seen that this holiday season has been awesome with Call of Duty and Stalker and Indiana Jones and all the good stuff, right? And it's going to continue in 25 and 26. We know that. But so far, yeah, right? And it's what I've always been saying. There's no reason Xbox couldn't get to in the ballpark of 100 million console sales with that lineup that they have now. Coming. It's not here yet, right? Which is simply different when you look at a Switch. Yeah. So let me shout out John TJ, who sends in a super chat of $2. Thank you so much. He says the Xbox would be the smallest and cheapest PC. Absolutely. Exactly what I'm going with, right? Xbox isn't just a console anymore, it's a PC experience. If you run Windows, you make the desktop go away, have your own user interface, but you run Windows on that console. It would be the cheapest PC out there. It's a super cheap gaming PC you can get to put it under your TV and not bother with the inconvenience that is introduced through actual PC gaming, right? And with that, they would have the cheapest PC. Still a little confused how they would make it work that Steam is on there. It's the store question.
The only way I can think Xbox could maintain some form of USP would be, and I don't think they will, because I think personally going forward, I think they'll end up making first-party games day and date everywhere, which I think would be detrimental to them. However, I think the only way they can remain some form of USP was if they extend the timed exclusivity period for console. So, for instance, if you get all Xbox games day and date on Xbox platforms and anywhere Game Pass is, and then it goes over to PlayStation or Nintendo, wherever they're releasing it, the year after. Or 6 months after.
Well, timed exclusives, yes, but clearly they're going away from that too. Right? Doom coming day and date. Outer Worlds 2 coming day and date on PlayStation. They are moving away from that. And I actually think if you bring them over, it kind of makes sense because you want to get that initial hype, right? Nobody cares about a game that comes 6-12 months later. We've seen it happen so many times. It's like, take Baldur's Gate as an example. Baldur's Gate 3 came out, 5 months after it launched on PC and PlayStation, and the hype was gone and nobody cared anymore. It is a handful of gamers that then got the interest, but it would have been very, very different if that game would have come day and date with PC and PlayStation. And so I do understand why, if you bring it over anyway, then use the initial hype. Yeah, Indiana Jones, nobody's gonna care in 6 months when this comes to PlayStation. The hype is gone. Everybody will be talking about the cool new stuff that is out whenever Indiana Jones hits, right? People will talk about GTA and not about Indiana Jones anymore. This is just the case, yeah. So I do get that, but yeah, I firmly believe they will try to make that experience going from console to PC to handheld truly seamless, and that will be their first and foremost unique selling point. Will this be?
I don't know how mass marketable that selling point is.
Yeah, that is the good question. To me, that would be the most preferred feature. I take that over exclusives any day. Any day.
We are the hardcore, though.
We are the hardcore, though, right? No. Not many of the casuals that today own a PlayStation to play like 3 to 5 games a year.
Yeah,
they don't have a gaming PC like me and a console right here and a Rock Ally over there and want to have that seamless. This is the question: how much will that influence or be a unique selling point towards the mass market? But
that's my ultimate thing about the entire strategy is I don't know for the hardware. It's for me, regardless of how fancy this might be for the hardcore that are here, the longevity of the hardware I think is under question. I think it's more a time of when they stop producing hardware than if, based on the current strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that it'll be underlined by the fact that the sales numbers will reflect that as well. And I think the sales numbers will absolutely reflect that on the hardware next gen.
Yeah, I would assume so too. Good Hunter in the chat says is addressing me. I'm missing a point here. Games coming 6 months later. Yes, they don't have the same hype as day one. But if I'm PlayStation only player, why will I buy an Xbox if these games are coming anyway? Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the second thing about these timed exclusives. I don't think it's enough to. If I really want to play Indiana Jones, if I really want to play that, am I going to buy an Xbox just to play it 6 months earlier? Not many will do that. Not many, because most of the casuals don't have multiple consoles. Right. Yeah.
And everyone keeps like, and one of the questions I always get is, okay, well, you're moving over to PC. What about your back catalog? But I never once said I'm selling my previous Xbox. I just said I'm not getting a new one.
Still keep, if you really care that much about the backlog, you just keep the console.
Keep the Xbox Series X,
That's.
I'm not losing my back catalog. That remains there forever on this console.
I
just don't invest in the next one because I'm getting PC.
Let me tell you another unique selling point that they could do, and we touched upon this a little bit earlier, is if they move away from AMD and have NVIDIA.
Yeah.
I think I know to the casuals, hardware specs really don't matter. But if you read in like every review, the Xbox console version just looks better because it has DLSS. You don't even need to know what DLSS is.
I mean, to be fair, if you mentioned the fact that, and for the mass market, especially those who just want to get on gaming for the first time, or the kid that want to buy a gaming PC, the vast majority of kids these days know what NVIDIA is. They've seen what NVIDIA is.
Yeah.
They know the name.
Exactly.
So even if you just said the next Xbox is built on NVIDIA, and like they would just be like, okay. And I wanted an NVIDIA card on my PC, but my mum said I couldn't afford it. But if Xbox is NVIDIA,
truly. And honestly, I've read
they market it that way, and I think if NVIDIA, if NVIDIA built it, NVIDIA being the biggest one anyway, they would market it themselves anyway, because ultimately they would make more money if it was an NVIDIA card.
Yeah. Blake in the chat says the Switch 2 is going to have DLSS. Absolutely. Yeah. And I still believe that even the Switch 2 will...
For a Switch 2.
Yeah. The Switch 2 will still not play in the same overall console market than PlayStation and Xbox do, because even the Switch 2 with DLSS is gonna be too underpowered to run most of the third-party games. There will be this phase where, like, yes, Call of Duty will then... I mean, Call of Duty still runs on the old consoles, right? On the Xbox One. So, yeah, those kind of games might come over. But the vast majority of third-party games is still not going to come to the Switch. So, if you are a little bit more serious about gaming, and that sounds like Switch gamers are not serious about gaming. This is not what I meant. Sorry to phrase it that way. Just for the lack of a better explanation. If you want to play your GTA, GTAs and things, you kind of need either a PlayStation or an Xbox if you want to play on console. Of course, PC is always an option there. So, yeah, if Xbox would move to NVIDIA, and honestly, I've read something today where my first and immediate thought was, hey, why have they moved away from NVIDIA? The OG Xbox had NVIDIA in there, right? There was some sort of like corporate thing going on between Microsoft and NVIDIA at the time. And it is sometimes these kind of things happen, but that has been ages ago. By the time the next gen console comes out, we're talking 20 years. Nobody cares what 20 years happened. But today I read that totally gaming unrelated, but the vast majority of GPUs that NVIDIA sold went to Microsoft. They bought more. This was a report on Windows Central, not the gaming section, but the general Windows Central, right? Apparently, Microsoft bought more than double than any of their competitor. May it be Google, may it be Amazon, and so on. All these AI-driven companies. Microsoft bought more than double the amount than any of their competitor in GPUs. For data centers and AI reasons. Clearly, there is a good business relationship again in between Microsoft and NVIDIA. Yeah. So, I know this would make backwards compatibility super hard. Switching that now again to a NVIDIA architecture. Nevertheless, they shut down the backward compatibility department many years ago. And they reopened the backward compatibility team again about a year ago, right? We know that. Yeah. So they were done with backwards compatibility, and all of a sudden it came up, okay, we need that team again. Yeah. Why would you need that team if you don't bring new games to backwards compatibility, which they won't. They've released all the backwards compatibility games they can for licensing reasons and whatnot. Yeah. So this is about the existing backlog thing to work on something that is either Windows based, this would be the one explanation, or maybe a different architecture being NVIDIA. And honestly, I would love that. And that would be a unique selling point. Yeah. If you imagine this. I know we're running wild here now, and this segment goes on for way too long. But if you are running the next Xbox based on Windows, Again, different layout, different launcher, doesn't look like a desktop, but it runs Windows. Developers don't have to develop 2 separate versions of their games for consoles and PC anymore. It's all the same version. All your games that you buy on the next-gen console will automatically have Play Anywhere because it's the same game, it's the same version, it's a Windows-based version that runs on PC, on the handheld, on the console. Same thing. But this time your console is different. In hardware, actually different. And I'm not talking about, this is an RDNA 1.5 and the other is full RDNA 2 kind of thing. Yeah? I'm talking about, the one guy is obviously clearly confirmed by Mark Cerny himself. Next PS6 going to be co-developed with AMD. It will have a dedicated NPU, a new version of PSSR. They have that up against the absolute benchmark on the market, which is DLSS in NVIDIA.
Yeah.
That would make the console hardware actually interesting. Like you have on the one side, very PC-like experience, just more convenient with DLSS, making games look the best on that console.
Yeah.
And the seamlessness in between a handheld and your PC and the console. And I'm talking here true seamlessness, not the weird thing that we have right now. Yeah?
Yeah.
You buy a Dragon Age on your console and it just runs on PC. Everything is Play Anywhere. So, talking that kind of seamlessness. Yeah? And DLSS, that would be a unique selling point. I could see that work out.
Yeah.
Rave Demos sends in a $5 super chat. Boxy, you're right. Xbox selling point is solving the third-party problem before Steam. But once play on PC buy once, play on PC handheld console. Something PlayStation and Nintendo can never do. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If that is a unique selling point, the question will be, is it enough to gain market share? Obviously,
the problem would be fixing the entire third-party problem.
Yeah,
would be convincing all of them to sign up to Play Anywhere.
Yeah. Mexico asks the question: would they go ARM CPU if they would pick Nvidia as their partner? Maybe. It hasn't turned out very well for them in the Surface space.
Yeah.
Right? That's why they basically right now you can look live here. The Surface line was supposed to be, their answer to the MacBooks. That was and they've struggled, of course, because market share in the regular Windows-based PC market has been there. There have been tons of other third parties. You have your Lenovo's and your Dells and your other laptops and stuff you can get, right? And so they've been struggling, and then they had this brilliant idea to go ARM, with the laptops. Clearly didn't work, and now they are slowly killing off the brand.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen with my consoles, because I love console gaming. In general, not just Xbox. I just love console gaming, and so not sure if they go ARM. I know we talked about this a year ago on this podcast, and I said something different. I know that, but seeing how the ARM situation turned out in their Surface line, I'm not sure anymore. I don't think that they would take the risk. They could go Intel CPU, they could go AMD CPU, right? There are plenty of options. Make it an Intel CPU, man. That would be the super interesting thing, right? You have an Intel CPU, an NVIDIA GPU, of course, molded into an APU. They will never, even though I would love that, but they will never ditch the APU design in a console simply for cost reasons.
Just go Ryzen. Why not? Just go Ryzen.
Yeah, but then we would have something similar again with PlayStation. I really want the two consoles to be different. Wouldn't that be interesting? All of a sudden, all these digital foundry pixel countings would be interesting again, man. If the consoles would be actually different. You know, you have an Intel...
Ryzen CPU?
Pardon?
Is PlayStation Ryzen CPU?
Of course. The Zen architecture is Ryzen. It's an AMD CPU. They have the Zen 2 CPU, same as Xbox, is a Ryzen.
Yeah. Could do. I mean, Windows works better on Intel anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, Good Hunter has a point. Intel are in worse shape, bro. They are. I know. I'm just joking here because it would make the console hardware in between Xbox and PlayStation. You would have an actual difference, and it would make things so much more interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with Mr. Kima in the chat. Zen 6 CPU from AMD would be better. Yeah, I agree. AMD is ruling right now the CPU market. They are for CPUs what NVIDIA is for GPUs, right?
Yeah.
This is something I could see them do to have a unique selling point. Now the question is if this is all pure speculation right now. I thoroughly believe that the Windows thing we've talked about in this podcast is going to happen. I don't know about the NVIDIA thing. I would love it though. So, Dutch, all that said, for the last almost 1.5 hours, we've stayed on this topic. It redefines what an Xbox fan is, right? This was the statement from Satya this week. I actually wanted to make this a full-fledged topic, but I think we touched upon almost everything already. It made some headlines because Satya said, that I'm just trying to find the proper quote. And so we said, let's take that joy of gaming everywhere. And that's why even these ads with Xbox Now, where we are redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan. It's about being able to enjoy Xbox on all your devices. The messaging is clear. Yeah, enjoy it everywhere. We don't care. And so on. My first thought when I heard that, don't want to stay too long on that topic because I think we covered Xbox and their strategy and everything enough. One thing I want to mention about this though is, I think it's up to us to define what we are a fan about. Yeah. Not Xbox is defining what people are fan about and what they are excited about. That's up to us. That's the one decision we get to make. Are we still a fan of Xbox and what they are going for? I would absolutely, I've said this before, I will buy all consoles. I will also buy the PS6 and I will buy the Switch 2 and I will buy the next Xbox. I'm not one to jump the ship here. I have always owned all consoles. I will continue to do so as long as they make them. Nevertheless, if they make this system really as seamless as we discussed over the last 1.5 hours or so, right? That would make me an actual fan of their strategy. Everything else, if we still have this break up in between the console and the PC and have the third party problem not solved, it is definitely not something where I can say as an Xbox fan, I'm excited that they bring all these games to PlayStation, because I fear too much for this, and I fear too much that we don't have a proper competition anymore in the console space. And if Xbox is leaving too much market share to Sony, which they already do, we see this non-consumer friendly behavior from PlayStation. If Xbox would be in life-to-date sales on par with PlayStation, they would have never released the PS5 Pro at $800 and sell you the stand and the disc drive for another $100, right?
Yeah.
Buying a PlayStation 5 Pro is not $800. It's, if you want the full experience, that you can put it in your entertainment system and buy the stand and everything extra, you're talking about a €900 experience. We would not have that if the market share would be closer, if they wouldn't have a quasi-monopoly. Yes, I'm calling it that now for the sake of argument. But across here in Europe, they definitely, you can call them a monopoly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Again, this is what it is, right? A de facto monopoly, and that's how they behave. They don't feel the necessity to give us great single-player games, which is why we love the PlayStation ecosystem, right? Anymore.
Yeah.
The roadmap is bare dry. They ask us ridiculous prices. They were the first ones to raise game prices in general, and console prices, by the way. Yeah, all these consumer unfriendly behaviors. I don't like that. I want PlayStation to do better by us customers, but the only way how we are getting that is by having proper competition. And that's why I'm so emotional about this. I couldn't care less if someone gets to play Indiana Jones on PlayStation or not. I play it, quote unquote, for free on Game Pass. And I got my money's value and my unique selling point right there. But overall, it doesn't help the competition. It does not help the competition in the console space, and that's what I ultimately want. Yeah. So, how are you feeling about Satya's statement, man?
Yeah, I completely agree. You stop telling people what type of fans they are because of your strategy. An Xbox fan isn't determined by what strategy you put out. Ultimately, the Xbox fans are determined by the ones that have stuck by you since the beginning of Xbox's launch. That's what an Xbox fan is. Somebody who's been there for a long time, or somebody who invests a significant amount of money in your platform. That's what an Xbox fan is. An Xbox fan isn't somebody who just happens to own the console and occasionally plays it. Ourselves, the hardcore, the people who spend the big money on your games. And I'm not talking about just buying microtransaction on Fortnite or COD points or anything like that. I'm talking about people who legitimately buy 10 to 15 full-priced games a year on top of your services, on top of peripherals, on top of hardware.
Yeah.
That's a fan of your system and your ecosystem. And to discard them and just say, oh, we'll determine what an Xbox fan is because of our strategy, I think that's a bit short-sighted. But again, I expect no less from a CEO that has absolutely no care about the history of his own brand.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right, Dutch. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about Mark Cerny and PS5 Pro specs. I also wanted to talk about some news that came out about the Marvel 1943, the Captain America Black Panther game from Amy Hennig. But we are running this show already for 3 hours and we still have the community questions to ask. So we're going to skip those topics for this week and get right into the community questions. And first of all, I need to apologize to this awesome community. Usually I put up the posts where you can write in the questions on a Wednesday. I simply forgot that yesterday, so I had to post it this morning, and probably a lot of people missed it because of that. But we still got a couple of good questions from the community. And by the way, here you can write in questions for free. I know a lot of other shows lock those behind Patreon or channel member subscriptions, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that. Everyone can write in these questions, usually on a Wednesday, if good old Boxenberger isn't forgetting it, to post it up. You can always DM us questions. We are trying to answer them all. And this week's first question comes in from Pshirki. He writes in, and just need to take a quick note here for the timestamps later. Pshirki writes in and asks, talk about the necessity to explain Xbox strategy to gamers as if they were 5 years old. And he quoted the great video from our good friend Deadly Headley, who, shout out to him, his video where he explains the new Xbox ad. You know, this is an Xbox in a video, and he did a fantastic job on that video. Got picked up by basically every news outlet. Everyone wrote yesterday or today an article about his video. He's blowing up. We have to get him back, by the way, on the show. We had him as a guest a couple of weeks ago. We need to get him back on the show. Obviously he hit the zeitgeist with this video. Otherwise, even Ryan McCaffrey from IGN, right, recommended this video where he explains this ad. And the question is, why is it necessary to explain an ad?
It's very necessary for an average consumer, because the vast majority of average consumers, will see an ad, see this is an Xbox, and they won't go on to the advertisement page, which you would be required to do so, to have a look at a blog post that tells you what that means. What do you mean everything's an Xbox? The vast majority of people literally don't care. I don't like when you see an ad, you need it to just stand out and go, okay, that's, for instance, PlayStation, they just have play today with PlayStation or something like that, and they'll have a picture of Spider-Man. Just having this as an Xbox on the screen, or this is not an Xbox, be like, okay, I'm just gonna get on with my life now.
It's, I mean, I had immediately your statement from a couple of weeks ago when we talked about this new ad campaign came to my mind. You said, well, the things you want to actually sell is either Game Pass or the console, something along those lines, and nothing of that gets mentioned in the ad, right?
The key thing that you need to push for this is an Xbox. Is Game Pass.
What do I need to buy that this phone that you are showing me in this ad is now an Xbox? This is why we as hardcore gamers.
Actually, here's one for you, an example of when the advert goes wrong. I had an advert on my non-smart TV and Virgin Media box yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
When I was watching the TV, that said, this is an Xbox. You tell me how my non-smart TV downstairs, the old one, it was reporting for a broken TV, my non-smart TV and Virgin Media box is an Xbox. You tell me how I'm going to play Xbox on that. If that advert
with a Fire TV stick.
Yeah, but it's a non-smart TV, it doesn't have USB ports. So the advert's
failed. You only need an HDMI port.
Yeah, but how?
With the Fire TV stick.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not a Fire TV stick, though. It just literally an advert came on screen. It didn't say get a Fire TV stick.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
This is an Xbox, but it isn't, though. There's a flaw in your strategy, Xbox, because it isn't an Xbox.
What I said about this campaign, it is too soon to claim that everything is an Xbox. Yeah, they are clearly going for that, but they are not there yet. And I mean, in the hardcore gaming bubble that we are all in, and probably all of our listeners here are in. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't listen to a 3-hour podcast that is related to gaming, right? We are all somehow invested in gaming, and we like to discuss these things. And for us, this is an interesting discussion point. Right?
Yeah.
And with an interesting discussion point, you have achieved already the target of an advertisement. You generate noise, you generate discussion, you generate people writing articles, making videos about it, and discussing it. Better than nothing. Better than nothing. Absolutely. But is it an effective campaign towards someone who isn't already a customer and does know what they mean with that? This is the question, and that's why this video from Deadly Headley was so brilliant, where he tried to explain the idea behind the ad. Is it effective though? I don't know. Not the expert
and
here.
The problem is as well is that it's not all TVs can access Game Pass either.
Yeah.
As it stands, only Samsung are the provider of Xbox Game Pass on TVs.
Yeah. And an iPhone isn't an Xbox.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
This
So there's things like this phone, this specific phone is an Xbox. This one is not an Xbox.
Yeah.
This TV, that's an Xbox. This specific TV is not. This Sony TV is definitely not an Xbox. The Samsung one is.
But not all Samsung, right? It's just a certain line. And this is what I mean. This is too early. If you ask me, I get the idea. See, people in the chat here, Blake is saying xCloud is still in beta. It is, it should not be in the forefront of your brand. Absolutely. Good Hunter says, even LG smart TVs, I don't have Xbox app there. Yeah, it's too early to claim that. So.
And then they're like, oh yeah, you can access Xbox Game Pass on the browser. Yeah, but a fucking normal person's not going to go into the browser on the TV and type in Xbox Game Pass and go on to no, the fuck.
It's also not really a good experience to do it that way, because the lag there is like insufferable. So, yeah, again, too
my
early.
whole point around this strategy was that it just doesn't. Right now, it's simply far too early, and B, it doesn't sell anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't even stress the point that the one thing you need for the strategy to work is Game Pass. So why are you not saying everything is an Xbox with Game Pass?
Yeah.
Because even that isn't true.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's.
But at least they'd be selling something.
Yeah.
Right now they're not selling anything.
Sith Lord writes in and asks this question. With Christmas around the corner, what are some of your most memorable gifts? For me, it was getting the PS2 in 2000 with Madden, NHL, and Tekken Tag Tournament.
I've never.
Let's keep the gift thing gaming related, because obviously there have been other gifts.
I'm really trying hard to rack my brains, because as a kid growing up, I was never one that was really gifted games for Christmas, because I always just got them throughout the year for birthdays and things like that. And my father was, especially when I was a kid, I grew up on PC gaming. Specifically, that's where I started. So my dad would come back, especially for his travels, being in the airline business, and he'd come back with a literal cardboard box full of PC games that he bought. So that was like his present to us. He was, but really technically for himself, he was like, "Look, kids, all of these games."
Okay.
So we'd have like mountains of PC games to play. So Christmas was never really about gaming per se. I think probably the Mebbies, one of the only real games I got at Christmas time was probably I would like to say maybe he's a Pokemon on Nintendo at some point. I've always liked Pokemon, so probably a Pokemon game on something like that. But I've never had a console given for Christmas or anything like that. It might sound sad in retrospect, but that's because we already either had them because we got them for a birthday, like a shared sibling birthday. And my brother might have got it, or I got it, or something like that. So it was never like that. And of course, we had the PC there because my father built the PC, so we always played on that. So it was, for me, it was never really. It was always bicycles or clothes or random things.
God, I hated clothes as a kid, man. When you got clothes for Christmas or birthday or anything.
Mountains and mountains of Lego was my thing when I was
Lego. I got that a lot too. No, I remember I was maybe, how old was I? 9, 10 years old, something like that ballpark. 10 years plus minus. When A Link to the Past came out. Zelda A Link to the Past. And we were celebrating Christmas over at my grandma's. And obviously, I didn't have my Super Nintendo with me there. So I got the game and couldn't play it right away. Yeah. And I was there. We were sleeping at my grandma's for that night on Christmas Eve. And then because here in Germany, we do gifts on Christmas Eve. Yeah, I know in the US, they get that in the next morning, 25th in the morning. We do that. We get our gifts on Christmas Eve, the evening of 24th. So, and we were sleeping over there, and it was like, I just wanted to go home and play that game. And I was lying in bed, and we were supposed that the adults were celebrating, and I was lying in bed with my brother sleeping there at my grandma's, and there was back in the time. You remember there were always like these booklets that explained a little bit about the game, and in the box of Zelda A Link to the Past was a entire map of the game, the entire map, along with, and my brother and I, we were already like staying up all night over at my grandma's. Was so excited to play Zelda A Link to the Past, and we memorized the map and everything, a single word that was in the booklet, and it was just, in hindsight, just a very special gaming gift. Getting that excitement, and you had to wait till the next day till we drove back home and finally get to play the game, and by then we had memorized the map and everything. It was just awesome. So, great question. Final question of the day comes in from the Big Bridge, and he loves to send in these special questions. I love them. They are always very unique. So he says, hello, hope you are keeping well and happy. Yes, we are. Hope you too, man. The question is, you are the honorable host of a triathlon, running, swimming, and cycling race event for video game characters from PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, and a wild card indie game character. Which ones will they be, and which location would you choose to host the race? His personal answer would be he'd choose Master Chief from Halo, Kratos, the one and only Mario, and Papyrus from Undertale. The menu being Lake Lapcat from Bowser's Fury. Let your imagination run wild. Dutch, who would we send?
What's this event? What is it?
It's a triathlon. So running, swimming, and cycling. I mean, Mario for Nintendo would make sense. I think that's not a question. He nails that. Who would you say else send? Link?
Possibly.
Nah.
You could send...
In most games, Link is a kid, man. You don't send a child to do that. You send in
Metroid girl. What's the Metroid girl?
Oh, Samus. Oh,
Yeah,
Samus.
Samus. Yeah.
Let's
Absolutely.
go with Samus for
Significantly
Nintendo. That's a
taller,
good one.
much bigger.
That's a good shout.
Yep.
That's a good shout. She could take on someone from PlayStation. So who would we send from PlayStation?
If we're talking about actual, like, athletic, fast, speedy, you could even go for the likes of Spidey.
Yeah.
He could cheat a little bit with his web slinging abilities.
Yeah. And the super strength and that. Let's go with Spidey, and then who would we send from Xbox? I mean, Master Chief, yeah, but I don't know him on a bike. He would just crush the bike, and I would go with Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah, he's a big bloke, though, isn't he? Would he be good on the bike? I don't know whether or not he would.
Well,
good on the bike.
Samus from Metroid, she has a super armor on and everything. So
maybe we'd have to stay with Master Chief then, if that's the case. He's got super armor on.
I would send Marcus. Oh. I trust in Marcus, man. He used the chainsaw to get out of a gigantic worm. So
yeah, he did.
That's.
But Master Chief sent a nuclear warhead into space via himself.
Yeah, well, but that's pressing a button,
Yeah, but he also had to fly there. You had to do. Come on, let's go.
That's no.
Banjo or Spyro or
Marcus would have taken the nuclear and throw it over there. He didn't need to push a button. No, I'm going with Marcus.
Okay.
All right. And where would that happen?
Ooh.
That race. In which world?
Oh, that's a good shout.
That's not an easy one.
What world did he choose?
Something from a Mario game. Lake Lapcat from Bowser's Fury.
Okay.
I mean, we can't go to a hostile planet or so. It would be.
That's why I'm trying to what? I'm trying to think. Non-hostile.
We can't go to Spidey's home, New York, or something like that.
Nope. Oh, that's a difficult one. A lot of the worlds are very hostile.
They're very.
Even the ones that you don't think are hostile.
True that.
So you think Spyro and you're like, no, wait, actually, there's a lot of things that want to kill you in Spyro. Then you think Crash Bandicoot and you're like, no, actually, most things want to kill you in Crash Bandicoot.
Also true. Yeah, we gotta. I mean, we could just go for one of the Mario Kart worlds, Rainbow Road. Let's go with Rainbow Road.
Yeah. Let's go.
All right. With that, we bring our podcast to an end this week. It's been a longer one than we expected, man. We talked beforehand and said, well, it might be a little shorter one today, but we ended up here being for 3.5 hours. This is because we always go off rails with these discussions, man. We're talking about the user interface, and then 1.5 hours later, we end up at NVIDIA and ARM CPUs and stuff like that. It's like... But we had a blast doing that. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Also, of course, a big shout out to everyone who listens after the fact, either here on YouTube, of course, or on one of the podcast services, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And with our new recording way, the show will be up in about an hour or so on the Spotify's and Apple Podcasts. So, We hope that this is convenient for you guys. I want to wish this entire community happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I do hope you guys will have a couple of enjoyable days with your loved ones, with your family. I hope you guys can squeeze in some gaming time for yourself. And we do not do the full end of the year. We thank you. We thank you always for being here, of course. But usually, we will have one more show before the new year on, as it looks right now, December 26th. We're going to do our first interactive podcast, an interactive show where we will determine with this awesome community what is Game of the Year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we will be back right after New Year's with a great review show where we review the year 2024 and give an outlook into 2025. So we will be here in between the New Year's and after Christmas and right after New Year. So, but anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy the holidays. Dutch, please let everyone know where they can find you, what you've coming up, and what you got to say for the end of this show.
Yes, yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in once again. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe. Been a blast. I am just, like I say, for the rest of this week, today onwards. Tomorrow, and I'll be finishing the spray project and getting that sent away, and then hopefully at some point over the weekend and into next week I'll be doing some more game streams, catching up on my game backlog, and then we'll be back again just after Christmas with our interactive podcast, which will be awesome. But yeah, you can find me both here and over on my channel The Wandering Dutch, and on every other platform as The Wandering Dutch. But thanks for everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you shortly.
Yeah. Again, guys, big thank you. And we see you hopefully on December 26th. Be prepared. This is not just sitting back in the chair and listening to us. During that show, you all will be participating in one way or another. We're not letting the cat out of the bag just yet, but I think we found a great format to bring you and make you part of the show and this is going to be a lot of fun. So, until then, again, enjoy the holidays. Merry Christmas to you all, and we see you soon. Don't forget to game on.